Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. We are in the pre-show. Got 10 minutes before we get started. Gives me a chance to check things, chat with folks, make sure everybody's able to get in okay on the website. I can check to see how many viewers we have, and make sure things are working. And it looks like they are. So there we go. Hello, chat room. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the pre-show. Let's give ourselves a little bit of Singer's Soothing Throat Spray. Get us going. I think we're pretty much ready to go. I might have gotten things ready here. I'm never happy with the cameras. Cameras are okay. Cameras are all right. Yeah, well, it'll do. It'll do, pig. It'll do. I think that'll work fine. Oh, email inbox is blowing up pretty good. That's good. Everybody's viewing. Welcome. See, people are joining. All the links are available on professormesser.com/live. Give you links to the Socrative, links to everything, really, is there. The phone numbers for the after show are there. It's all there. Let me make some room on my desk now. Everything on my desk is now on arms, which it wasn't before. I didn't have anything on an arm. Now they're on arms, and I throw things akimbo, just to put them anywhere, except for the camera. The camera, I'd love to have the monitor in front of me up higher, but I can't because there's a camera there. Can't do that. I could if I put it next to the camera, but I didn't want to go back that far. This camera is back pretty far. I guess I could move the camera in. Oh, it's a whole thing. We aren't going to get through that. We're not going to get into that right at the moment. Presentation. We need a presentation. That would be good. Let's see if that's working. That is camera 4. Camera 4 with the virtual head there, which I can't see very well because there's a light in the way, but I can see now to my left. One thing I did was put on my desk, I put the TriCaster, which used to be way over there, is now right next to me where I can see what's going on. So I can see just fine. I can see how badly my camera is centered in there. That's useful. Welcome, welcome. Ba-ba. Da-da-da-da. Hello, chat room. Glad you're here live. Thanks for joining live. It is, what's it like outside today? Let's see. I've got the bird feeder up. This is the live stream in the backyard. There it is. That is a very bad pixelated view. There we go. It caught up with itself there. Not much happening in the backyard today. What is it? 57 degrees. 57 degrees. Yes, it's freezing outside. How do we survive in whatever this is? And I look at those poor folks up in DC and up northeast. They are having to deal with snow today. I feel you. But you could always come down here, hang out in Florida, where it's nice. It was 80 degrees yesterday. What else? I think we're ready. I've got recordings going. Are the recordings going? Yep, there's the Cylons going there. Got a recording on the TriCaster going. I got plenty of drive space there. I've got... Oh, Thomas, congratulations on your A+. Thank you for your support with the study guides for 901 and 902, the course notes. I'm glad they helped. Thomas says they're very valuable. I think so too. I'm glad they worked out for you. No birds at all. Kind of a slow day. Now we've got about 5 minutes to go. Now we just hang out. If anybody has questions, welcome to put in the chat room. I'm watching. This is the chat room that's on professormesser.com/live. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll notice there's no chat there. I'd love to get a chat like a front end like Adobe has. I'm working on that, Everything's on one screen. It's a big display. It's got chat enabled. It's mobileized. I guess there's no real good name for that. It's mobilicious. That's what it is. It's mobilicious. Why didn't we use that term? I got the website, and it's now mobilicious. But we don't do that. We've got plenty of questions today. All Security Plus questions. I'm sort of looking forward to this because I've got a bunch of Network Plus videos that are in my editing queue that have to be edited, and then I have to shoot some more. But I don't have a study group next week. We aren't doing one of these live events next week, so it'll just me be sitting here in front of the camera doing Network Plus stuff. Let's get this going. What else we got? I think we're ready. We're doing good here. This never happens. It's 4 minutes now. I'll just sit here for 4 minutes. There's back to the birds. We can at least watch the birds if there are any, except my big pinpoint highlighters on the screen. That doesn't help anybody, does it? I've got something happened to the tree. Something hit the tree. I don't know what happened to this tree. Something went after it. And there's pieces of the tree everywhere. I don't know what happened there. This camera it's like a security camera. It's a, who makes this? I'm trying to remember the name of the company that makes the security camera. But it's just a standard security camera. Why do I want to say it's Redneck? It's not Redneck, but it's from China. I will figure this out. Where's the? It's here in the South. This is just how it works. Let's see. Yes, give me some feedback. Hick Vision. See how it was Hick Vision, not Redneck. Hick Vision. Very close. Very similar. Very close to each other. An actual company called Hick Vision, H-I-K Vision. Here in the South, Redneck's fine. That's not a pejorative, by the way. And since I am coming to you from sunny Florida, we're sort of proud of that. How are we doing on time? We got 2 minutes of me insulting all of my neighbors and family. And then we will... Oh, but by the way, the camera, it's a power over Ethernet camera. So I just ran an Ethernet cable designed to be outside and just put it in the ground. I didn't really put it inside of any conduit. I just stuck it right in the ground because it's already wrapped in plastic. And brought it outside. It's powered, comes all the way back into the studio, into my data center, which is a closet, and plugs into a power over Ethernet switch. And then I'm grabbing this with some software that attaches, does I forget which protocol it uses for this to do the real-time video, but it's one of the standard ones. I'll have to map that out, how all of that works, because it's pretty nifty for those. Let's get things ready though. We got about a minute before we get things started here. We should probably get things prepared, turn some phones off. That would be good. I'll keep it nearby in case Mrs. Professor Messer needs something. Sometimes happens. Oh, congratulations, Sam, on you took the 501. Congratulations. The brand new one. We'll do all 501 questions today. It'll be great. You'll love it. Be fantastic. All right, enough of the bird feeder. I need to turn the sounds back on the bird feeder. Get that going. That's ready. Here's ready. That's ready. Good. We can do a study group, everybody. We're going to start in just a few seconds. So let's get this thing going, and we'll do the Security Plus study group standby. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 2018 Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group, coming to you live from the worldwide headquarters of Messer Studios in Tallahassee, Florida. My name is James Messer. I'll be your host for this hour of Security Plus Q&A. I'll ask you security questions, and if you're here live watching, you'll be able to answer them live, interactively, online, through what I hear is called the World Wide Web. We'll see if it actually works. Well, thanks for joining us. If you are watching live, make sure you join the live chat room. We've been chatting back and forth already in the pre-show at professormesser.com/live. Obviously, if you're not here for the live event, there's not a lot that's going to be going on in that chat room. It won't even be there if you go to the live show. But there's always a chat, always available at the bottom of every page of the Professor Messer website, and usually me and a bunch of other crazies are in there answering questions or doing something. You can always check in and say hello. A lot of you in the Northeast are stuck at home today because of the weather, and you're able to join live, so welcome. Welcome to the live stream. We're so happy to have you here. We're going to do a lot of Q&A. If you do go to professormesser.com/live, you'll see the links for the live interactive Q&A. You'll see the links for calling in later on in our after show. There's a lot that we're going to go through in all of that today. I'm able to do this thanks to your support. We're able to have these live events. Of course, every minute of every one of my Security Plus videos is available to watch online. You don't have to do anything special. They're just on my website. You click them, you can watch them. Every minute of every video. It's not a subset. They're not behind a paywall. Some people would like to have an offline version. I do sell those versions, and you can check those out at professormesser.com/getsecplus. Not only includes the video, but also includes MP3 audio of those videos, and also my course notes. The PDF version of my course notes comes with that. We'll talk about the course notes later on in the study group. There's also other ways that you can follow what's going on. I've got professormesser.com/Twitter, where I do usually it's a question every day that goes out for A+. I should do more tweeting. I'm one of those people that I don't really tweet a lot, but I should do more. I've got people poking me to do that, prodding me in an effort to get me active. Where I am active is on YouTube, professormesser.com/YouTube. There's a ton of Network Plus content that's coming out right now. And I've got plenty of things happening right after that. And of course, don't pay full price for your Security Plus voucher or any of your CompTIA vouchers. Get a discount. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers, and you'll be able to get that discount. There are some free Security Plus questions on my website. You can go through a summary of questions that we have had in our study groups there, professormesser.com/pop quiz, 20 block questions, 20 questions in each one of those blocks. And you can go through and see how well you do with some of these Security Plus questions. Also, this live event that you're watching in video form is also available for replay in audio form. So you can go to professormesser.com/podcasts, and you can subscribe to the RSS feed, and it just automatically shows up in your podcast listener. If you are finding this on your podcast listener, and there's also a video replay that you can watch of all of my study groups on the website, professormesser.com. You can find the links to all of those under the Security Plus menu. Of course, Security Plus is what we're going to be talking about today. There are two different Security Plus exams that you could choose to take right now to earn your Security Plus. And we're talking right now being March the 21st of 2018. There is the SY0401 exam. It's been around for almost over, well, it's over 3 years now that it's been around. It was released in April of 2014. It retires in July, at the end of July 2018. So if you're studying for your Security Plus right now and you're thinking, I will never be done with this by the end of July, don't even study anything that says SY0401. Instead, you want to study the newer version of the exam, which is the SY0501 that was released on October the 4th of 2017. It doesn't matter which one you take. You earn exactly the same Security Plus certification. So if you've been spending months and months, I just got an email from somebody saying, I've been studying forever for the 401, and all of a sudden I heard the 501's available. It's okay. You can still take the 401 through July. So don't stop what you're doing and restart. It turns out the 401, the 501, pretty different exams, extremely different exams, very, very different. So don't think that you can just, I'll stop what I'm doing, I'll shift gears. It's not a shifting of gears. You're stopping the car, you're getting out, you're running around it 3 times, and then you're getting back in again. It's a very different exam. So pick one. Whichever one you pick, go with those study materials. Don't study from a 401 material if you're taking the 501 exam. Don't study from 501 materials if you're taking the 401 exam. Make sure they all match. That's the important thing that I need to tell you. This will obviously, if this is after July and you're watching this on the replay, then you'll be taking the 501. That is the most one. The 501 is quite a bit different, so make sure you know about that. They're both exams though exactly the same structure. There's 90 minutes. You get a maximum of 90 questions. You will get multiple choice questions. You will get performance-based questions. It's all exactly the same, regardless of which one you take. So there's no dramatic differences in the exam room. The only difference is with the content that you'll be asked on, because there are quite a few differences in the two. Not a huge dramatic difference in difficulty, just a difference in the type of content that's covered on the exams. It was almost I would say a 50% rewrite in the 501. So don't get caught walking into the exam and taking the wrong version. That won't work well for you. Make sure you always choose the version that you've studied for. There are plenty of things that you need to do to study for that. Today, we're going to do a lot of Q&A though. Make sure if you are watching this live that you go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. There'll be a question waiting for you right now. If you are doing this on a mobile device, you may want to start the mobile app from Socrative. This is Socrative's student app. And you'll want to go to the room name, Professor Messer, Professormesser. Make sure you spell that right, or you will be in a room with nobody. There won't be a question. Nothing else will be going on. So make sure that you know that that's the case as well. If you do go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and just pop open a new window and go to it, there will be a question there waiting for you that happens to be a question from last month. So it's kind of a bonus question. It's the rewind question. Which of the following best describes CHAP? Which of the following best describes CHAP? And there's multiple choices here that you could choose. It sends the username and password in the clear. It allows users to authenticate using third-party credentials. It provides SSO functionality. It uses a challenge message during the authentication process, or it requires an accurate clock on both the client and server. 5 different options there. And you can see 91% of you have said D, chooses a challenge message during the authentication process. So if we go with what everybody is saying, then it would be that D. I see that a lot of people choosing B. 7% is the one in second place, allows users to authenticate using third-party credentials. CHAP. Maybe you do know CHAP. Now, if you're able to see this question, you're able to answer this question, then you're in the right place. You can stay right on this website. As I change the questions on my side, it will magically change on your side to show you the right thing as well. So there's nothing more you will need to do to be able to get that. So those of you here that were here last month, you remember this question. Obviously, which of the following best describes CHAP? The answer was it uses a challenge message during the authentication process. So when you log in and give your name, you are also handed a challenge message that you combine with your password and create a brand new challenge response. And those two things have to match over on the server side, and then finally you're allowed access in. So it's not as easy as simply sending your password over the network, thankfully, and getting that back. There is that challenge. That is the challenge part of CHAP, is the fact that you have a challenge message, you create a brand new password based on that, and send it across. Very secure in its operation, although there have been some security concerns by only providing a challenge message. There's other ways to do it these days that is even more secure than that. So something you may want to think about. So if you are one of the people that did answer D, uses a challenge message during the authentication process, you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Let's jump into the Security Plus questions though. One of the things that I also like to do on these study groups is not just give you the multiple choice questions. You'll get a lot of multiple choice questions on your exam. But the first chunk of questions you get on your exam, there will be a handful of questions right out of the gate. Question number 1 will not be a multiple choice question on your exam. It will be a performance-based question on your exam. Performance-based questions are anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might put you at a command prompt and have you perform a function. You might be putting things in an order from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. You may be matching things together. So what I like to do on these study groups is the first question is a performance-based question. So in fact, the chat room's even saying, you even may want to jump over them, do all the multiple choice and come back, which is not a bad strategy, by the way. Now, whenever I sit in the exam room, the first couple questions are difficult for me to know what's going on around me. There's a lot of anxiety. I can't understand what I'm reading. These may be too complicated for me. Let's jump over those and go the multiple choice and finally settle in. And time is always a concern. So here is your performance-based question. And I don't know why I stuck all of this here with a build to have these all here. In fact, I should just get the whole thing and build it out so that you don't have to see any of the building. So I've got 5 things here. I've got multi-factor authentication types, except I gave you the description of the multi-factor authentication type, and you have to tell me what multi-factor authentication is appropriate given this description. So here are the 5 different multi-factor authentication types. I guess it made sense to even do. During the login process, your phone receives a text message with a one-time password. What is that? What is that type? If you know the answers to these, do not put them in the chat room. You want to put them in professormaster.com/QA. So that's where you would go to answer all of these. And this one is a fill in the blank. The next multi-factor description is you enter your PIN to make a deposit into an ATM. What multi-factor authentication type is that? Notice I'm not giving you the multi-factor authentication types. This is not multiple choice. You have to be able to figure these out. So make sure you go through these. The third description is you must sign a check-in sheet before entering a controlled area, which I have done before. What multi-factor authentication type is that? Here's another one. You can use your fingerprint to unlock the door to the data center. That's nice. But what multi-factor authentication type is that? And the last one, your login will not work unless you're connected to the VPN. What multi-factor authentication type is that? So for those of you on the podcast, I'm going to go through these again. The first one is, during the login process, your phone receives a text message with a one-time passcode. The second one is, you enter your PIN to make a deposit into an ATM. The third one is, here I have to make sure you guys are able to put these in. There we go. The third one is, you must sign a check-in sheet before entering a controlled area. The fourth one is, you can use your fingerprint to unlock the door to the data center, which is nice. And the fifth one is, your login will not work unless you are connected to the VPN. I have unlocked the answer page, so you should now see a fill-in-the-blank available. And you could just do A, B, C, D, E, and then tell me what multi-factor authentication type you think goes with those different descriptions. These are all multi-factor authentication types that apply to both the 401 exam and the 501 exam. So hopefully these are some that you know these different types. So these are effectively 5 different answers. There's my clue for you, is you're not repeating any of them. These are 5 completely different answers that I'm looking for. A is an answer, B is an answer, C is an answer, D is an answer, and E is an answer, and they're all different. So some of you are plugging them in as we go and figuring out the details. Some of you are spot on with these, by the way, for that. Some of you leaving them blank, which is okay. You're working through the details. I got an email. In fact, somebody sent me, where this one came from. Somebody sent me an email this week that said one of these is not a multi-factor authentication type. I thought, no, it pretty much is. But we can talk about that in the after show. We can always go. If you want to answer the question, go to professormaster.com/QA, and you can answer this question. You'll see the question and you can answer the question. You can do both of those to be able to do that. I'm watching the answers as they are coming in. So I see it interactively on my side. Most of you are spot on. That last one, though, that last one seems to get folks. The last one was, your login will not work unless you are connected to the VPN. That is kind of a tough one. So hopefully, yeah, if you haven't covered this yet, if you don't know, some of you are telling me, I don't know this yet. Well, that's fine. That's why you're here. I will cover all of it in just a moment. You'll have a good understanding of what these multi-factor authentication types happen to be. So don't worry too much if you miss a couple, if they don't make sense, or maybe you're able to tell me that the answers, the questions and the answers didn't make sense. Sometimes I get it wrong, but you'll be able to fight with me over that. I'm thick-skinned. You can tell me if you think that's not the right thing, and we can talk about it. We can figure all those pieces out. But I think a lot of you are spot on with this. I would say the majority of you are probably getting most of these right. I'm having the questions the answers are trickling in right now. So let's go through these 5 and see what they are. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with multi-factor authentication types, these are additional factors of authentication that are requested during generally a login process. So you can of course very commonly provide a username and password, but you can also be asked for other things like a fingerprint to get into a data center. You can be asked, like this first one, during the login process, your phone receives a text message with a one-time passcode. What type of multi-factor authentication process is this? And if you've ever done this, then you're probably familiar with this one. The reason we are sending this text message to your mobile phone is ostensibly you're the only one with your mobile phone. This is not exactly always the case, but generally it is. So it's something you have, is what that particular multi-factor authentication type is. I have my phone, so I put in my username and password, I get a special code. I'm the only one who knows that code because I'm the only one with my phone. This is the same type of multi-factor authentication you use if you were given a key fob that has a number on it, or if there's an app on your phone where you're able to see the serial number come up. That is something you have. You have that phone or you have that key fob. Therefore, that's the type of multi-factor authentication happens to be. Let's do the second one. You enter a PIN to make a deposit into an ATM. Probably not a good idea to make a lot of big deposits into an ATM, but it can be convenient at times. And it does ask you for a personal identification number. So there is some authentication associated with that. What is that? It's something you know. You know the PIN. In fact, that authentication is 2 different types. You have your card, for the ATM. So in some ATMs, you don't even use a card anymore. There's a person there, and you can give them other types of authentication. But you have a card, which is something you have, and you have the PIN or PIN number, which I like to do because it makes people crazy, which is something that only you and your brain happen to know, hopefully. So that's a very common authentication process, or authentication type. Here's the third authentication type. You must sign a check-in sheet before entering a controlled area. This one's the one you kind of have to extrapolate a little bit. Why are you having to sign a sheet? And I said sign. You have to sign your name. Why am I having to sign it? Well, nobody can read my signature, so it's not to figure out who went in the room. But if you're signing something, the idea is that someone would be able to verify that's you based on the signature. So the signature is something you are, or something you do. That only you know how to do the signature in the right way. Nobody else can walk up and do that signature the same way you're doing it. And they can check that against that signature. Well, you did this. Let's look at a signature that we have saved earlier. Hey, they match. I'm going to allow you into this controlled area. The fourth is you can use your fingerprint to unlock the door to the data center. I love this feature. I need this in my data center. I would love to have this. That is a biometric function, and that is something you are. Skipped ahead. Something you are, because you are that fingerprint, and nobody else is that fingerprint. Same thing with a retinal scan or a handprint scan. That's something you are. And very common with biometrics to do that. So when you go to Disney World and you have your pass, they take your pass, they scan the pass, and then you put your finger on a reader, and it checks your fingerprint, makes a mathematical calculation of what your fingerprint looks like, and they store that mathematical calculation. And that way they're able to know that, well, that must be you coming in for something you are. And the last one, your login will not work unless you're connected to the VPN. This is another one you kind of have to think about what is going on here. with this? Why would I only be able to log in through the VPN? The VPN's obviously you're somewhere else. You're outside the building, so you're having to connect through a VPN. So this is a very common way to do multi-factor authentication, because if you're able to get onto the VPN, then you must be in an area where we know where you are. You're at least in a controlled IP address where it is somewhere you are. That's the real key. Now, if you tried to authenticate, but you were in another country and the IP address came from somewhere outside of the normal scope of IP addresses, we might decide you're not in the right place. You're somewhere you aren't. You're not here. So I need you here. I need you either on the VPN or in the building to be able to authenticate into this server. That's how important that server is. And if you're not on the VPN, then obviously you don't have access to the inside of the network. And if you're not in the building, then you're not inside on the network. You must be outside. That's somewhere you are. So we can, of course, do that type of geographic understanding of where you happen to be. And that's very common to have that, of how those things fit. This is one where these types of questions will be asked of you first thing on the exam. These are performance-based questions. This is one type of performance-based question. And you can, of course, look at the replays for previous study groups. I have a different kind of performance-based question every week, but you never know what you may be faced with. The real key for answering these questions is to know the content. If you know everything that's in the exam objectives, it won't matter how the question is asked. You'll know immediately what the answer happens to be. So that's a pretty good example of something you can work through. And people are already complaining that some of these are not what they would agree with. And we can always talk about that in the after show too, because there's one of these that somebody told me doesn't even count anymore as multi-factor authentication. And I don't know that that's true either. We can talk all about that, of course, in the after show. We'll do this for an hour, and then I open up the phone lines and I take answers from the chat, questions from the chat room. So we can do that after we're done, where you're welcome to do that. But I have more questions for you right now. Here's a multiple choice. Finally, we are away from the performance-based questions. This question is about attack types. The question is, which of these attack types modifies database requests to gain access to unauthorized information? So that is the one where you do need to know these types of things. We're going to fix a couple things on my screen. There we go. Which of these attack types modifies database requests to gain access to unauthorized information? Is it A, injection attack, B, a DDoS attack, C, a replay attack, D is an amplification attack, and E is a spoofing attack? We have 5 different attack types here, all of them perfectly real, legitimate attack types. I didn't make up any of these, but only one of these attack types modifies database requests to gain access to unauthorized information. Is it an injection attack, a DDoS attack, a replay attack, an amplification attack, or a spoofing attack? Maybe you know the answer, and if you do, don't mention it in the chat room. Don't give any hints there. You just want to go to professormesser.com/QA if you're watching this live, and you'll be able to answer this. Now, if you don't know the answer, some of you are even saying, oh, I haven't even gotten to this chapter yet. That's okay. On your exam and here, you should take a guess. If you just don't know, you have no idea what they're talking about, it's all nonsense words to you, and it's a multiple choice question, just guess or hit A. Just decide it'll be A every time. Maybe I'll get 25% chance of getting this one right. In this case, it's a 20% chance of getting this one right. On your exam, you usually get 1 of 4 possible answers. So that's one that might be something you can do. This is one where you do have to know these attack types, and there's a lot of attack types on the exam objectives. Make sure you know about all of them. Make sure you read up on them. Make sure you see some of the most recent attacks that have happened in the news and read about what attack type did they use. If you ever hear about a breach, a data breach, read into this information. Find the trade magazine that talks about these. Go read the blog entries and find out, how did they get in there? Did they use an injection attack? Did they use a DDoS attack? Did they use a replay attack? Did they use amplification attack? Did they use a spoofing attack? Did they use one of others in there? Or was it another type of attack that I've not even listed on here? Let's see how we answered this one, though. How do we do? I don't even know. I've not even looked And 78% of you have said injection attack. Double digits, 17% of you said a spoofing attack. And then it's single digits, 2 and 1%, practically a tie for third for DDoS attack, replay attack, and amplification. But most of you said injection attack. That's whenever I start looking at where do I find all of this information? Where do I hunt down all the details for this? That would be the place to go. So hopefully you're able to get into this view and think about what these might be. You all said injection attack, but is it? What type of attack would modify database requests to gain access to unauthorized information? I think you're spot on. Anybody care to know the exact type of injection attack this would be, or a common attack type, injection attack type that would modify database requests to gain access? That'll be a little bonus. I'm going to see in the chat room if anybody happens to know a very specific injection attack type that would modify database requests. Do you happen to know? Some of you are putting them in now. You're all answering. That was one where you could answer because I gave you permission to answer, so it's okay. So that's one that becomes pretty important to know those and go through all of those details. So a SQL injection is the correct detailed answer. It is an injection attack, and more specifically, SQL injection, which is an incredibly common attack type. Incredibly common attack type, unfortunately. So this is one where you do have to know your stuff about securing your databases, because SQL injections can be, they can be everything. They can give somebody complete access to all of your data, all from the front end of a web browser, anywhere in the world. Kind of scary for those pieces. SQL injection, very commonly, what it does is modify SQL requests and makes them more of a malicious type of attack. Gets around the request that's being made and really gets into the raw data of the database. So that's one you do need to know about this. Now, those of you are wondering, so what was the answer? I'm about to tell you. It's okay. I give you the answer here, and then I go back and I explain the whole thing. So don't worry. I won't leave you hanging. SQL injections are pretty bad. You will find there are still SQL injections that will occur. People will find vulnerabilities with applications that allow them to perform these SQL injection attacks. Very commonly, people will put information up or content scanning devices. Usually it's a web application firewall or even an IPS in some cases that can stop very common SQL injections. So if you did answer A, injection attack, you got that one correct. Got that one absolutely correct. 79% of you got that one absolutely correct. So well done with that, being able to go through those. SQL injections are nasty. This is a SQL injection I have on my screen here. So if you're someone who is trying to see how does this work, I give an example of that, demonstrate a SQL injection in my videos, and I show you how you can do the same thing on your computer as well. There's plenty of ways to do that, work through those pieces. Let's do another question. I've got another multiple choice question. You guys did really good on this one. I try to get half of you knowing what the answer is, and I try to make it so half of you don't know what the answer is. It's kind of mean, isn't it? But if I made it so that every question was something everybody knew, it'd be kind of boring. So let's see if you happen to know this one. This is absolutely a 501 question. This last one was both a 401 and 501 with the injection types. But let's do one that's a 501 question. For those of you studying for the new exam, this question is for you. Which of the following would best describe a COPE device? I guess it could be pronounced C-O-P-E because it's all capitalized there, isn't it? Which of the following would best describe a COPE device? C-O-P-E. And I have some options for you. It's a multiple choice, thankfully. Is it A, all user data is stored in a separate partition? Is it B, it's only used when a disaster is called? Is it C, it's assigned to the event response team? Is it D, it uses cloud-based backups exclusively? Or is it E, the device is returned to the company during the offboarding process? Which of these would best describe a COPE device? COPE, not Coke, not COPE, C-O-P-E. Charlie, Oscar, Papa, Echo, COPE. So one of those. Maybe you know what this is. There's a type of this mentioned on the 401, but it doesn't go into the detail of what a COPE is. So hopefully you know the answer. Which of the following would best describe a COPE device? Maybe you know. So make sure you go through the list of options there, get rid of the answers you don't think are appropriate. Make sure you go through the list. Maybe take the ones that's not the right one, and then choose. Notice this would really be asking for the best answer on being able to have these here. Hopefully you know what these devices are. This is a very common thing these days, isn't it? For those of you that know the answer, you're probably already familiar with a COPE device. COPE. This is one you do have to know absolutely for the Security Plus exam. This is in the exam objectives. Make sure you know. Let's see how we did with this one. Well, we're kind of torn. We did not get to, almost got to a 50%. E, the device is returned to the company during the offboarding process. 45% of you said this. But 29% of you, almost a third of you, said it uses cloud-based backups exclusively. 11% of you said it's only used when a disaster is called. And then kind of a tie for fourth, 7 and 9%, assigned to the event response team, and all user data is stored in a separate partition. So which one of these would it be then? What the heck is COPE anyway? This is how we describe mobile devices these days. COPE is corporate-owned, personally enabled. So the company is the one that is owning the device. This is probably not the most common method of handling mobile devices. Most, I would say the majority of companies would allow you to use your own mobile phone that's yours. You bought it. You are in contract with it. You handle everything about that phone. If that phone is broken, you fix it. It's yours. And then they, of course, have you connect to the corporate network from there. But a COPE, the corporate-owned, personally enabled, is one the company buys. Maybe they don't trust your phone. Maybe they don't want to use your phone. Maybe it's more important that the company have complete control of that device. So it is very often, however, the company realizes this is a mobile device. And when you're not in the office, you can, of course, use this commonly as a personal device, although they may choose not to do that either. The personally enabled is the part that allows you to really use it as a personal device as well. So the company probably has a way to partition out the corporate data and the user data in there using your mobile device manager. The company is going to have full control of this device, by the way. So it's almost like when they give you a laptop when you start job. Here's your laptop. Here's your mobile phone. Go. You can think of it that way, and being able to have that there. Whenever I start looking and finding companies that do this, the ones that are very, very, very controlling of the data, very controlling of security. And a good example in the chat room, somebody said, yeah, the government. That's a very good example of someone who would be very interested in, probably more importantly, the government contractors. They're security is so important to them. So be a good way to do this, have it there. So whenever I start looking at trying to figure out the details, this is how you would absolutely figure out those details, is going through this list of things. This is a little different, by the way. Sort of the same thing as CYOD, choose your own device, where the company will give you, here's a list of things that you could choose from. Which one do you want? Do you want Android? Do you want iOS? I'll take the Android. I'll take the iOS. And then you can go about your way. Hopefully they'll give you an option. That's not always the case though, is it? Usually it's, here's your phone. Yeah, I really didn't want iOS. Well, that's too bad. That's what we use here. So that's kind of how it works in most cases, to have those things there. Maybe that's working that way for you as well. In Messer Studios, it's not corporately owned at all. It's sort of, well, it sort of is corporately owned, because there's nothing associated with that and having those pieces. No, the idea, the concept of COPE being a corporate-owned device doesn't have anything necessarily to do with a mobile device manager. It's really describing how the devices are deployed. Mobile device manager is the device that deploys them. That's the difference between those. So the 47% of you that said the device is returned to the company during the offboarding process, it's returned to the company because it belongs to the company. It's corporate owned. So maybe that would be the one that clued you in. 47% of you almost hit that 50%. That's exactly the one. The answer. It would not be all user data stored in a separate partition. It may be, but that doesn't best describe a COPE device. Only used when disaster is called. No, you probably use this device all the time. assigned to the event response team? I guess it could be, but it's really, COPE is something that everybody, it describes what everybody is using. And uses cloud-based backups exclusively. Maybe it does, but that has nothing to do with COPE. So that's how that works. COPE, MDMs, VPNs, all of those different authentication types, all the things we're talking about are all contained in my course notes. If you've ever gone through the Security Plus content, it's a lot of content. And what I did was take everything from every slide, all of the graphics, all of the text, all of the charts that I created, all of the descriptions of attacks, the graphical displays of attacks, they are all in these course notes. They are extensive in the amount of information that's there. You know what? I don't have my course notes up on the screen to even show you. I should do that so you get to see them. That would be nice. The course notes are and you can see 94 pages long. They are huge in being able to contain all this data. I had to do it. The 501 course notes are about the same size. The 501 course notes are, how big is the 501 course notes? They are 94 pages. So these are pretty big. I think I have them on my screen here. Oh, that's big. Those are some big course notes. Those are enormous. Let's do a 2-page course notes display. So this there's my table of contents, and you can see descriptions of viruses and worms, all of the graphics, all of the text. There's DNS amplification. All the details are in these course notes. I put everything in there. Now, maybe you go through and you've watched all the videos, you took your own notes. That would be fine too. So that's something that I think not everybody's able to do, though. And it's kind of nice to have everything in a color PDF digital display that you can put on any of your mobile devices. So as you're traveling around, you got the PDF right there. And it's something you can, of course, put on everything that you're using. And it's only $20 for the 501 course notes. I also have a physical version of this. So here's the physical course notes, all in full color. You can't see them very well because of the light that's shining on there, but it's exactly the same content as the digital version. But some people like to have a book, a 94-page color book of all of these things. That's what I did, was create both of those. I didn't used to have the book, and then Mrs. Professor Messer said, no, you need to have the book. So that's one that's available as well. Now, if you buy the book, it's a little extra because printing is expensive. But I basically just pass that cost, that horrible cost on to you. I try not to make anything on the printing of it. And if you buy the physical book, I give you the digital version for free. So there's a little extra there. So if you either get the digital version or you can get the physical that comes with the digital version. Either way, $20 for the 501 version. Something there. Very easy to have there. And it's on the page. If you're looking at professormesser.com/live, and of course it's on the main website as well, or you can simply go to professormesser.com/securitycn. I want to thank you for the folks that have purchased this already. All of the profits from this go back to keeping all of this running. I would not be able to do any of this without your support. So thank you for being a part of this. It really is amazing what we've been able to do with this. So thank you so much for that. Find out more about the course notes, professormesser.com/securitycn. And of course, there's course notes available for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. I have some Microsoft to Windows 7. I think that certification will be retired here in the summer. And some ICND1, some Cisco course notes are there as well for those. That'd be some nice things to have. Hopefully it's something you're able to take advantage of. It doesn't replace your book. It doesn't replace the videos, but it is a nice thing to have as you're finally studying up for the exam and having all those things there. Hopefully they'll help you too. Let's do another question though. I've got one for you. Let's go through all of these. This question, I'll change it on your screen. There we go. The question is, which of these would be the best way to ensure that your security policies are applied to cloud technologies? This is really going to be a 501 question for sure. This is, if you're studying for the 501 exam, this is definitely a 501 question. Which of these would be the best way to ensure that your security policies are applied to cloud technologies? Would it be integrate an IPS? Would it be install an NGFW? Would it be use a CASB? Would it be integrate DevOps? Or would it be use an agile model? One of those would be the best way to ensure that your security policies are applied to cloud technologies. Hopefully that's one that you know about. Hopefully you've been able to work with this a little bit, or you know the exam objectives really, really, really well. That would be the best way to know these two, because it's not something otherwise you sort of run into. Although some of these technologies you may have used before, and you may be able to say, yes, it does that, or no, it doesn't. So let's go through these again. Which of these would be the best way to ensure that your security policies are applied to cloud technologies? Would it be A, integrate an IPS, B, install an NGFW, whatever that is, C, use a CASB, whatever that is, D, integrate DevOps, or E, use an agile model? One of those. Yeah, and if you don't know what the acronyms are, you just make something up. That's what I do. I think that's what most of us in the industry do. Maybe that's one that's there. But this is absolutely from the 501 exam objective. So if you're studying for the 401, you don't know this one, don't be too alarmed. This is not covered in the 401. This is absolutely 501. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and you can answer. You can figure it out, put your answer in, lock it in, and see if it happens to be that. Let's see how we did with this one. We've got a number of you that have answered this one already. And almost 50%, 45% of you said C, use a CASB. We've got kind of a tie for second with D and E, which is integrate DevOps and use an agile model. 13% of you said integrate an IPS, and 7% of you said install a next generation firewall. I thought installing a next generation firewall was the answer for everything. I guess maybe it isn't. So the problem here, of course, is we're putting more and more and more applications in the cloud. But as a security person, as we put more into the cloud, we're now losing control. And that's not a great thing for IT security. We need to be able to apply our security policies regardless of where the application's data and people may be. So how would we do that? Well, you would absolutely use a cloud access security broker, a CASB. So your clients are working, all your data, all your application is in the cloud. So how in the world do you take your existing security policies and be able to make those work inside the cloud? You use a CASB, a cloud access security broker. It allows you to have the same level of control over the applications, the data, and apply your security policies to data that is in the cloud. So that may be a good way to start looking at this. I've got an entire video that talks about Cloud Access Security Broker, how it's applied, all of the different levels of application, how you would make those things happen. You may want to have a look at that video. It is, I even mentioned this here, the 501, it is section 3.7, security in the cloud is the name of that video. That might be useful. So for those of you that answered, use a CASB. So absolutely, that is the correct answer. 47% of you did get that one. Absolutely correct. Would not be using an agile model. That refers to more of a programming style of application of policies. Integrating DevOps, fortunately, has nothing to do with security policies and cloud technologies. 13% said integrate an IPS. IPSs won't help you with your security policies in the cloud, and a next generation firewall isn't going to help you either. These days, your IPS is in your next generation firewall. Nobody's buying individual IPSs anymore. So everybody's using a next generation firewall for pretty much all of that anyway. So if you answered C, use a CASB, then you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Let's do another. We have time for another. We've got plenty of time. This one, again, directly from the 501 exam. I told you we'd be doing a lot of 501 questions today. Here's a 501 question for you. And the question is, what would be the primary purpose of a CIRT? Maybe you could call it a CERT, except it's CIRT. What would be the primary purpose of a CERT? Fortunately, I have some options for you if you've never heard of this before. Would it be manage mobile devices from a central console? Would it be consolidate log files from diverse sources? Would the primary purpose of a CERT be to block invalid application requests? Would it be to receive, review, and respond to security incidents, or would it be to securely store encryption keys? So which of the following would be the primary purpose of a CIRT? Would it be A, manage mobile devices from a central console? Is it B, consolidate log files from diverse sources? Is it C, block invalid application requests? Is it D, receive, review, and respond to security incidents? Or E, securely store encryption keys? One of those. Yeah, that's absolutely 501 question. So if you're studying for the 401, you're wondering, where did that one come from? It came from the 501. And if you're studying for the 401 and you're wondering, where can I get more 401 stuff? You have 3 years worth of study groups. You're welcome to review. All of them are available on the Professor Messer website. You can always go back and look at any of the previous study groups. They're always there and always available for you to do any of those things. Hopefully you know what this is. No Googling. Pretend you're not in a place where you can Google. You can't Google during the exam, right? You can't Google when you're in the middle of a meeting. You can't. Not to have any type of understanding of anything that's there. Let's see how we did, though. The purpose of a CIRT. How do we do? Well, 75% of us said receive, review, and respond to security incidents. And all of the rest are single digits. So we have to wonder, did we hit on one that everybody knew? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the answer then is review to that. Well, first we have to understand what a CIRT is. The CERT, the Cyber Incident Response Team, is the CERT. It's a response team. It's the key folks that will receive, review, and respond to incidents that occur, security incidents specifically. So you as an organization have to figure out, at what point do we get everybody together? If somebody gets a virus infection, is that worth putting the CERT together? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So that's one of those that whenever you start working through those and trying to figure out the details, that's where you would go through any of this to figure out, okay, we need to do that. But maybe it's something. If something you lose data, if you find somebody has finally got through a brute force attack, maybe that would be it. Maybe that's the details of going through those pieces, the CERT. It may not even be part of a formal structure in your organization. Maybe just pull these folks together as needed. It just depends on the size of your organization, how often you would need these to be available. So that'd be something to consider when you're looking at this. So if you did answer receive, review, and respond to security incidents, that would be selection D. The 76% of you got that one absolutely right. That is the CERT. So if you are part of a group that has already got your Security Plus certification, or maybe you have a Security Plus certification that is used for other types of things, maybe you've got a cert from somewhere else that needs continuing education credit, you can, of course, do that. For a continuing education credit, I'll give you an hour just for being here, just for watching this. This obviously isn't going to help you if you don't have your Security Plus cert already. But for those of you that do and need a webinar version of a Security Plus continuing education credit, I'll give you one if you follow these instructions, and you must follow these instructions. You go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Somewhere in there is going to be a link that says contact us. To really contact me. It sends me a message. And in there, put your name, your email address, and somewhere in the description on that form, in the content of that form, use the code word CERT, C-I-R-T. And that is going to let me know that you at least must have watched this. You must have known that I would be asking for that specific word. You can also put anything else in there. I read all of these as they're coming in. So I'll send you back an email that says, yes, you must have watched this. I certify in at least 1 hour. So you get an hour out of the deal in being able to have that there. Hopefully it's something you can use as well when you're going through and trying to renew your certification. Not everybody uses continuing education credits, but you are able to at least take advantage of those as an option. I think most people these days are doing the single term, the single process. On the CompTIA website, you can do this one thing, and it doesn't even require taking an exam anymore. And you can do all of that. So hopefully it's something you were able to do with all of those pieces as well. Maybe it's something you can use for doing all of this. A lot of you are working through a lot of the exam content. And one of the things I tell you is you need to know everything that's in the exam objectives. You need a good book, watch some videos, do some Q&A, and get as much hands-on as possible. That's why I recommend the GTS Learning Live Labs that give you this hands-on. It is all in your browser. And people say, I don't have time to set up all the labs. I don't have a VPN connection I can set up. I don't have an IPsec tunnel I can create. I don't have all of this equipment. It's okay. Folks at GTS Learning have already done this for you. It's all virtualized. It's operating systems you're able to log into, to move around, to configure. They take you step by step. There's screenshots available. It's an amazing technology. All you need is a browser. You don't have to have anything special loaded. There's no special software that won't work when you load it. I hate those kinds of labs. These are fantastic because it's all this remote access. It's very fast, very responsive, really nice setup. And if you follow this link, professormesser.com/seclabs, you don't pay the full price that you do on the GTS Learning website. It's only $125. That includes not just the live labs, it includes the GTS Learning book and some Q&A. I like that GTS Learning book, not just because they stuck my videos in there, which I think is reason enough, but it's one of those books where it tells you exactly what you need to know for the exam, and it doesn't give you any fluff, which is why I use it when I'm creating content for these. So make sure you have a look at those. There's a whole description page. You can learn all about it. Send them notes. The folks at GTS Learning are great to work with. That's why I recommend their products. I would not recommend something I didn't personally like if I didn't like the people that were there. I've had meetings and dinners and talked to the folks at GTS Learning. They're great folks. Find out more about that, professormesser.com/seclabs, SECLABS, and you can find out more. In the chat room, folks have said, we want something dealing with cryptography. So maybe that would be the way to do it. Make sure you go through this and figure out those pieces. This is one where whenever you're working through this, maybe that would be the way to do it. Here's the question, though, that is more cryptography. Folks in the chat room are trying to figure out the whole CEU thing, and you're not quite right. It's not an email. Don't send me any. Please don't send me emails. That's not going to work for you. There's a very specific process I gave. Make sure you follow that, because that's part of the continuing education credit. You have to follow the process. How else do I know that you listened? Which some of you may not have. You're going to have to figure that one out. You can always check the replay when we're done here. Here is your cryptography question. How does a digital signature provide authentication? That sounds very simple. How does a digital signature provide authentication? Is it A, a hash is derived from the original plain text? Is it B, the same key is used for both encryption and decryption? Is it C, a public key is used to encrypt the original plain text? Is it D, a private key is used to encrypt a hash? Is it E, a shared key is created from a private key and a public key pair? How did that happen? What is that? How do we do it? How does a digital signature provide authentication? It's one of those ways to do it. Hopefully you know the answer to this one. If you do, go to professormesser.com/QA and you can answer this one. How does a digital signature provide authentication? So that would be the way to do it. The chat room people are now making up ways to send in CEUs. Well, you write down the time code. No, you don't write down the time code. You don't. You wait for the replay. As soon as this is over, by the way, the replay is immediately available. It's being recorded as we talk right now. So don't worry, you'll be able to rewind when this is over. You'll be able to see all of it. Don't worry yourself about all of that. All of it will be very clear to you. But now we're talking about digital signatures. So those of you in the chat room that are asking, I need some cryptography, help me. Well, this is definitely a cryptography question. So hopefully this is one you know about. Digital signatures providing authentication. How do they do it? What magic is involved that allows a digital signature to provide authentication? That sounds crazy. Maybe that's how you do it. Now, Thomas has got the right idea. I should make a CEU. Well, you send me a pizza. The code word has to be written on the box. and I do like pepperoni. So you are correct there for those. But don't do that. Please don't send me a pizza. That'd be creepy. That's all I need. Mrs. Professor Messer would love that. Trust me. odd pizzas start showing up at the house. That would be a bad scene for everybody. Let's see your answers, though. 4, digital signatures providing authentication. Oh, we're all over the place. We're not quite sure. Like every question dealing with cryptography, none of us are really quite sure. But I will step you through. So after this, you will absolutely be sure. We have a tie for first. 32% have said D, a private key is used to encrypt a hash, and E, a shared key is created from a private key and public key pair. 18% said A, a hash is derived from the original plaintext. 11% said a public key is used to encrypt the original plaintext, and 7% said the same key is used for both encryption and decryption. So hopefully you will be able to go through all of these and figure out the details. Maybe this is one where you've gone through my video series in 501 already, but I'm going to give you a quick short view of exactly how digital signatures work. Let's have a look at this. So let's say that you've got a document, you want to send this to someone, but you want the person on the other side to know it really came from you. That's called, in the cryptography world, authentication. You're able to really authenticate who sent this particular thing to you. So let's talk about creating this digital signature. Here is this document that I'm sending. Alice is sending this document. The document says, "You're hired, Bob." That's the plain text that we're going to need to sign. We need to send this to Bob, but we want Bob to really know it came from Alice. So what's going to happen is Alice is going to hash that document. She's going to hash the document here that says, "You're hired, Bob," exactly as is. She's going to create a hash from that. Well, that in itself doesn't provide any authentication. All it provides is a way to make sure that nothing changed in that document, but somebody else could come along, say, "You're fired, Bob," create a hash of it, and send that to Bob. Well, that's not what we're looking to do. Digital signatures add an extra piece. So what Alice does is she creates this hash, and then she encrypts the hash with her private key. The only person who has Alice's private key is Alice. That's why it's a private key. Nobody else in the world has Alice's private key. So when she effectively encrypts the hash, she creates this very unique digital signature that nobody else could have created. Well, that's nifty. And what she does is then let's say she's not interested in encrypting the message. She still wants Bob to see the message, but she wants to put that digital signature just as if Alice really signed it with a pen with her signature. So that digital signature is then sent off to Bob. Well, how does Bob really know that came from Alice? That's the authentication part. That's the part where in this question, we're really wanting to know about the authentication. Bob receives this message. It has, "You're hired, Bob," and it has a digital signature, but did this really come from Alice? Bob wants to know. So he takes the digital signature, and the only thing he really has of Alice's is Alice's public key. In fact, everybody in the world has Alice's public key. It's a public key, after all. That's why we call it a public key. And what he does is decrypt using the public key. You know, the public and private key are cryptographically related to each other. We have decided that one half of this key we're going to call the private, one half we call the public. But whatever is encrypted with one can be decrypted with the other and vice versa. So in the case of a digital signature, he can use Alice's public key and decrypt that and come up with, we think, was the original hash. The one way to tell is Bob's going to take the original message and perform the hash himself and see if those two things match. And if they do, then we have a verified digital signature. That must have come from Alice. It wouldn't have decrypted with her public key and then matched the hash if it didn't. So it's a really remarkable way of performing authentication using cryptography that we already have in place with our public and our private keys. And if you go back to the question, which is how does a digital signature provide authentication, we use a private key to encrypt that hash. 34% of you answered D, a private key is used to encrypt the hash. That is the part that provides the authentication, to have that there. So hopefully that's been one where you were able to really know for those different pieces. Maybe you do. Maybe you've used digital signatures before, and that's common. Let's go through these other answers, though. 29% said a shared key is created from a private key and a public key pair. And that is a Diffie-Hellman key exchange. That is not digital signatures. That's a way that two sides could create a secret key without ever sending the secret key to each other. It's magic, I guess. Diffie-Hellman key exchange is a good example of public key cryptography, but it's not using public key encryption. It's interesting how that works. And of course, it's in my videos that talk about Diffie-Hellman and how that came about as well. 18% of you said a hash is derived from the original plain text. In fact, we did derive a hash from the original plain text in this example, but of course, that doesn't provide any authentication. Anybody can create a hash from the original plain text. All that does is make sure that we receive the document as it came through, as it was originally sent, or when the hash was originally made. Doesn't stop somebody being in the middle of that conversation, though, does it? So not a very good way to provide any type of authentication, but it does make sure that the document is exactly what it was when the hash was created. 10% of you said a public key is used to encrypt the original plain text. Usually we don't use public keys to encrypt plain text. Usually we're using a private key to encrypt the plain text, or really in the case of a digital signature, that's what we're doing. For just normal encryption, we're of course going to encrypt using a public key of the person who's going to be receiving this, because nobody else could then decrypt it. Sort of magic. Somebody put in a comment to me this week that said, that doesn't make sense. So why can't I take the public key that was created with and somehow decrypt it? Because you can't. That's how it works. That's the beauty of public and private key. And 7% of you said the same key is used for both decryption and encryption. That would be symmetric encryption. That's not used for digital signatures, generally speaking. That's, in fact, digital signature implies asymmetric encryption. There's other types of digital verifications that are not digital signatures. Whenever you hear the term digital signature, we really are talking about asymmetric encryption when we're doing that. So hopefully those of you that did answer the D, a private key is used to encrypt a hash, 35% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. That was the correct answer, and that is the one. Now at least you got some of that cryptography in there. You were asking about it, having that cryptography, and that's exactly where it came from. All of these questions come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. This should be the first thing you get your hands on when you're ready to start studying. If you don't have these, stop your studying, go get the exam objectives. They are at, go to Google, CompTIA exam objectives, or you can go to professormesser.com/objectives, and I redirect you over to the CompTIA site. Get a copy of these. They tell you everything you need to know, which is, by the way, one of the most popular questions I'm asked, which is, what do I need to know for this exam? That's it. It's in this document. If you know everything in there, you're going to pass your exam. That's how detailed these exam objectives are. Make sure you have a copy of these. They also make a really good checklist before you finally decide to go in and take the exam. You're wondering, am I ready? Well, let's go through and check off everything that's in these exam objectives. And if you can check off everything, you're ready to take the exam. So it's a good sanity check just before you're ready to book that exam and have that there. Can you believe we've gone through an hour of these questions already? Don't worry, I do study groups every month, though. The next study groups for Security Plus is going to be April 18th. Of course, I do an A+ study group on the first Wednesday of the month. That'll be April the 4th. Network Plus will be a week after that on April the 11th. And the next Security Plus study group will be April the 18th. If you're watching this video and it's way after April 18th, you missed that one, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar or go to my website. Just choose the calendar link at the top, and you'll be able to see what the latest calendar is, all of my live events. I've mapped out April. I need to map out May. Make sure I've got those. I got to check my schedule and make sure that we don't have any conflicts. We're getting into the nice part of the year, so we'll make sure that we're able to get those study groups in there. Well, we've got plenty to talk about in the after show. Stick around. I'm going to open up the phone lines. I'll take questions from the chat room. You can ask me anything that happens to be there for all of those pieces. We can go through all those details. And I'll answer questions about the digital signatures that are also coming up in the chat room. Don't forget about my course notes at professormesser.com/securitycn for my security course notes. Of course, smash buttons and follow and alarm and all that nonsense by going to professormesser.com/YouTube. And if you're into the Network Plus stuff, I'm putting a ton of Network Plus stuff out on YouTube right now. Not right now, doing a live stream right now, but you know what I'm saying. There's also Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter, Facebook, professormesser.com/Facebook. Just whatever social media thing you think I'm on, go to professormesser.com/LinkedIn/Instagram/Facebook. You'll find me. It's out there. Don't forget about your voucher discounts at professormesser.com/vouchers. And my thanks, of course, to GTS Learning for all of their support and the discounts they give for their live labs at professormesser.com/seclabs. We've got plenty more to talk about. We're not even close to being done. There is Instagram. You didn't go to professormesser.com/Instagram, did you? I told you, you just put stuff in at the end and you'll find it. We've got another hour or so worth of stuff. I'll just answer questions until you're tired of me in the after show. So stick around. We're not done. We're sort of done with the interactive QA, but we've got plenty more to talk about. Don't worry. If you got to leave, I can appreciate that, though. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for answering the questions and your comments in the chat room. It's been fantastic. I could not do this without you. Stick around for the after show. Otherwise, we will see you next time on the Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group. How do we know? We'll answer some of those questions coming up about how we know, how those things work. In the meantime, right now, let me work on getting the phone lines up so you're able to call in. I don't even think I have it on my screen over here. So if you will bear with me one moment, I will go to those call-in lines, get that started. I will host a show, and I will call into the show as well so that you can call into the show and we can talk with each other. Again, it's the cloud. How do they do it? But yet, they do it every time. All right.
Thank you for calling.
Well, you're welcome. I think I type in a thing that I can't see on my screen. I should probably pop this up. So we'll type this and that and this other thing, and then it says...
That was an invalid show.
I know.
Please re-enter.
Let's try it. Let's try it again. How could that be invalid? It looked valid to me. I think because... Oh, do I put a hash? I put the tic-tac-toe sign.
We did not receive a response.
Come on.
Goodbye.
Oh, love it. Goodbye. Well, at least they don't have to deal with any type of brute force. We've already learned something secure about my call-ins. So we've got that part. That's so let's do this. We've got we're all trying to figure out in the chat room, how does the authentication really work? How are we able to know that?
6-digit PIN number.
Oh, we got a little farther that time. We're going to put in this and that and this and that, and it says,
welcome.
Oh, they said it couldn't be done. Well, I don't see it welcoming on my screen. There we go. So if you would like to call in, you're welcome to. Here's the phone number from anywhere in the continental U.S. is 855-785-7545. That's a toll-free number you can call from anywhere in the continental U.S. or anywhere in the world you can call for free on Skype. Just put in a +1 in front of that because it's toll-free. It doesn't cost you any Skype minutes. How nice is that? +1, 855-785-7545. In the chat room, people were asking, now how does Bob verify the message really came from Alice? This is one of the last questions we had in the study group. Well, because Alice used her private key to encrypt the hash, and Bob was able to decrypt the hash with Alice's public key, we know it really came from Alice. Now, of course, we are assuming that the only person with Alice's private key is Alice. You might want to call Alice and make sure that it really is the only person who has that. Normally, if Alice has realized her public key got in somebody else's hands, then she wouldn't be using that for what she was doing. She would have made sure that certificate was one that was no longer in use and would be using something new. That's how you know. Without the certificate exchange, there's no certificate exchange. You have Alice's public key. So you already know that if you decrypted it and checked the hash and it all worked, then it must have come from Alice. That's the beauty of asymmetric encryption. So that's a nice way to do that. So there's no key exchange. There's no, in fact, in the case of PGP, there's no certificate authority. I like that. No CA at all, and yet you're still able to do it. That's one of the nice things about. That's really one of the reasons PGP was created the way it was. So there would not be a centralized certificate authority. There is nobody who can validate that that certificate is yours other than you and your friends. So that's the way that particular type of certificate configuration works. That is part of the unique part of PGP is the ability to a friend of a friend, therefore has an inherent trust associated with it. Got to tell you, it's a little better than than the CAs that we're using for websites sometimes for that view of the world. Oh, but that's another long conversation we can have about websites and their security and how it works. Let's do some phone lines, and then we can talk about the web of trust is what that type of security, that type of trust model is for PGP, is the web of trust. Let's go to the phone lines. 571 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, see, that's me right there. Oh, me again. Let's do it again. Hi, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, okay. No, I'm watching a YouTube video. Okay, that's why. Hi, my name's Unsuf. I'm calling from Northern Virginia.
Oh, welcome. Are you snowed in?
Yeah. No, so right now I'm a high school student, and I really appreciate all the hard work you put in, Mr. Messer. Like, it's been helpful. Like, your videos have been helpful. Great. And I was on, so since I have school off, I actually was lucky to join this live chat.
Nice.
Yeah, so, yeah, no, we have 5 inches of snow, so that's what's happening here.
Sorry to hear that. Hopefully it'll be springtime soon. Well, it is springtime, just a little better springtime, I hope.
Yeah.
What question can we answer for you today?
All right, so right now, okay, so my school ordered since I'm a high school senior, and I've been taking this Security Plus course that my school offers.
Nice.
And what it is that they have a SYO 401, so I'm just studying for that now.
Sure.
And I had actually 2 questions. One of them was if is Exam Dumps a nice resource to use as to study, because that comes from the actual exams, or do you not recommend using that?
Now, let me pose a question, or answer the question with a question. If you have a history class and there's a history exam coming up, and somebody handed you all of the questions that are going to be on the history exam without your teacher's permission, would you consider that to be okay?
No, I wouldn't.
It's the same thing with industry certification exams as well. Now, it's fair. In the chat room, people are going, of course not, but it's not a bad question, because there are some exams that you could take as a professional. Let's take, for example, when I took my amateur radio exams from the federal government, it was an exam where they gave me a subset of questions that existed in a much larger exam database, but the exam database was public information. They made this exam so that you would at least know what to study from that. But for the CompTIA exams, and effectively for any of the IT industry exams, those questions are intended to be confidential. So I say intended to be confidential, because nothing in this life can be locked down digitally any longer. We all know this. But the challenge that CompTIA and anybody else has is constantly updating that list of questions, so that even if the list did get out and people were able to view them, that when you sat down for the exam, you might get a completely different set of questions, which has happened to people in the past as well. What they call brain dumps, which are kind of a nice term they use for stealing questions, which is what this is not looked upon very well in the industry, because you would be earning a certification and you really didn't earn it. You got a certification without really earning it. And quite honestly, the process of learning the content from a certification exam really teaches you a lot of very good topics, whether it's your A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, or any of the other stuff that's out there, Cisco exams, the others. Just going through and doing the hands-on and learning this actually gives you some very, very useful career life skills to be able to use in ongoing. So although I do see sometimes people do take shortcuts, unfortunately, and use brain dumps. I would recommend to you that you do not, that you really do try to understand the content and learn the content really as intended. And I think ultimately it will not only allow you to pass the exam, but it will allow you to get those better jobs later on. So that's a sort of a longer answer than you're probably hoping for, but that's what you would find. You said though you had really, 2 questions.
Yeah. Oh no, I really appreciate that because no, I was thinking of using it because I only have, so I've taken only the IT fundamentals and I passed that one without any studying, and then I took this Oracle SQL exam that I passed also, but that was a very difficult exam.
I bet.
So I think I have the capability, hopefully. So I was just wondering, just making sure that and that's a good point that you brought up, and I haven't thought of that really, because it really helps you just to go through it, and then you actually comprehend what's like the material, and that helps you in the industry rather than just taking a shortcut.
It's remarkable how much.
I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And then the second one, if I pass, because I take this exam in May, since I tried to take it earlier, and he told me that my teacher told me I couldn't do that because the school orders it, and he only can set up the software in May time, since that's when our school final exams happen. So if I pass the exam, do I get certified? Because I haven't taken the Network Plus, but do I also get certified in that? Because I kept looking online, because I only read that it renews it, but I haven't read that it actually gets me a Network Plus exam also.
And your readings and your what it sounds to me, your speculation is absolutely correct. You have to first take the Network Plus exam and earn it in order for the Security Plus to be able to renew it. Taking the Security Plus, unfortunately, does not then extend Network Plus or A Plus credentials to you. You have to take those exams. The only way to earn a Network Plus credential certified in Network Plus is to take the Network Plus certification. No other certifications can bestow or give that particular certification to you. Unfortunately, no shortcuts there. Bummer.
Oh, okay, that's fine. No, he told me I could take the Network Plus also.
Oh, good.
He didn't. He said I could. He couldn't give me the A Plus because I'm not I've worked with him before, and he told me that I would have to really review a lot because I don't have much of a background in that perspective. But since I'm taking security, of course you need no networking components in order to do security.
In fact, the Network Plus is one of those exams that will give you skills that you'll be able to use in all of IT. If you're doing server administration, if you're working in the data center, if you're working with databases, if you're doing programming, and especially with security, having a foundational knowledge in networking is one of those types of areas of knowledge that you will find helping you throughout whatever you end up doing in technology.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll definitely. Okay, so I'll definitely tell him to take. I'll take the Network Plus then, because
that would be great.
Because I really like our school because they get, not only they buy vouchers, but they also have any student could take going to expire vouchers. So he told me I could use one of those vouchers because he has 12 vouchers I think that expire in May, and he told that any student can take the exam if they wanted to.
The opportunity you have in your high school is a unique opportunity. Let me at least tell you, there's not a lot of high schools in the U.S., much less around the world, that have the ability to get those vouchers, to set up or at least allow you to be able to take these exams, to teach you these materials. These are certifications that are needed and required and are taken every day by people who have been in the IT industry for many, 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 many years. They are extremely valuable sources of knowledge to be able to take with you. And I think it's great that you're able to do this in high school. This can only help you going forward. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Messer. All right. I hope you enjoy your day, sir. You
too. Thanks for calling. Good luck with that snow. That's I say this sort of sarcastically because I am in Florida and it's 60 degrees here today. But I guess that's one of the reasons I just stay in Florida is that. What a great opportunity, though. Don't blow it. Don't mess it up by doing brain dumps, which applies not just to high school, but anywhere else. Don't mess it up. Go learn what they're teaching you here. It's really valuable stuff, and you will be able to use it for as long as you go. We got people holding. I will come back. Somebody in the chat room was asking about the studio. We can do a studio chat in just a bit for people that want to know what is all this stuff? What in the world are you doing with this? I'll tell you all about it coming up. First, let's get the phone lines for the folks who've been holding so long. Thank you for holding. The 718 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from New York City.
Oh, welcome. What can we do for you?
Hi. First of all, thank you so much. I already watched all your videos for Security Plus. I'm planning on taking the 401.
Great.
And I always listen to your study groups, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I recently graduated with an IT degree, a bachelor's, and I got an internship at an insurance company.
Nice.
So my interviewers told me that if I want to get further and ahead than the other interns, Security Plus would be a good idea.
So it's not an arm wrestling. There's no type of physical challenge. This is really, they want you to definitely get a certification.
Yeah, I asked them before I left. I asked them if they would recommend me do something to
That's great.
further my chances. Yeah, and then they said I should take Security Plus. So I've been studying a lot for it, and I bought the Cert Master from CompTIA.
Sure.
Are you familiar with that?
I know the name. I'm not very familiar with the internals, but I'm certainly aware of it.
Okay. So it's basically they ask questions based on the module.
Yep.
It's a little bit similar, I guess, to the questions that you put on the study groups. I wanted to know, I've been doing let's say 75% accuracy on that so far.
Pretty good.
I want to know if you would know based on the Security Plus exams that are out there, how similar, is it easier than it or is it harder? If I'm getting 75% accuracy, does that mean that it's a hard program, or not a program, but the questions are harder than what's actually on the exam, and I should be worried about it, or I'm pretty close to understanding the basics?
It's sort of a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody to figure this out. Are they ready to take the exam? Is what you're studying from really an accurate representation of what the exam would throw at you? I know nothing about the internals of the Cert Master application. I've never even loaded it on my computer. I know nothing of it other than the name and that CompTIA provides it. So I don't have a lot of knowledge about the details. I have read what other people have written about it in things like Reddit. The CompTIA subreddit's a great place to go, by the way, to start parsing out what other people have seen with other products. That may even be a good place to ask this question on the CompTIA subreddit. There is what people generally say about Cert Masters. That's a very good overview, but they found that it's not really giving them exactly the perspective of when to take the exam. They're really going through all of the different topics and then sort of using other tools to be able to supplement that, which is probably a good idea anyway, even if it was. What most people, I think, say is that if you get to 80 to 85%, you're in the range to be taking the exam, which I think is probably a pretty good number. Usually, I like 90%. If you've gone through a set of questions from a book and you get 90%, you're probably in pretty good shape. But 75% is sort of down low. Part of the problem is that the exam itself, you aren't really sure about percentages because you don't get a percentage on the exam. It's between putting 0 and 900, or really between 100 and 900. You can't calculate it. It's too difficult. What I always tell people is whether you're using Cert Master, whether you're using another product, whether you're looking at my videos, it doesn't matter. Always use your exam objectives. That will be the ultimate test, the ultimate checklist of, do I know everything I need to know before I walk into the exam? And that it is an extensive list of everything you would need to know. So have you had a chance to at least get the exam objectives? Have you been using that?
Yeah, I have been, and a lot of the videos are based, like your videos, are based off of that. So that helped me as well. I took notes while I was watching your video. So even though the video is let's say 5 minutes, it would take me a little bit longer because I would take notes on your notes.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I just had one other question.
Sure.
So the videos did help me a lot, and I bought Daryl Gibson's book on Security Plus,
Okay.
which is also very helpful. But I find that because I already have a degree in it and I went through classes for 4 years, I don't necessarily have the time to go through every single word in the book. So I'd go to it for for reference in case I have a question about a specific topic. Sometimes I feel like videos are helpful because it's very visual. For example, the digital signatures they did today was visual, so it was very, very helpful to understanding the topic better.
Right.
Would you know of any other videos that would go into certain topics in detail, like a trusted or good kind of YouTube videos or things like that, where I could search for more of a detail of a concept?
I wish I did. You know, one of the things about doing video versus book is they are, as you mentioned, two very different sources of content. There's no way to take everything that would be in a book and make a video series of it that would be short enough for people to be able to watch. There's just so much you can cram into a printed page, and there's no way to get all of that out. My course would be 4 or 5 times as long if I was doing this from content from a book. And nobody you don't want to sit through what's there already, much less something that's 5 times longer. So I always recommend people get a book. I think it's great. Other video series, I don't know. I literally spend all of my time creating content in the studio that I've never really gone out and looked at other people's videos, at least not any level of detail. Right. But there are some of the big names in the industry out there, and you can try and actually that might be a perfect place to go on the CompTIA subreddit to ask, what are other people using and what did you like? And there's already a lot of threads out there about that. There's a huge archive you can go through where people are commenting on those. That might give you some places you can at least try. A lot of these places that provide videos have even though they're commercial and they cost money, some of them have something you can try it out. They'll give you a sample of videos or try it for a certain amount of time. That might be the way to do that as well. There's a couple of places you can go out there in the world. There's not a ton of videos out there, but there's a few places you can go in the Udemy's of the world and the other commercial providers that might give you some options.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling.
For everything.
Absolutely. Best of luck.
Thanks.
That's fantastic. The challenge with me, I at one point thought, well, I could go through all of the books that are out there and review them. I could go through all the video series out there and review them. I just don't have time. I'm building all of my own videos. After this, I will be putting together the podcast and editing more videos. So that's what I spend my time on. I'll leave it up to you guys to do your own reviews. You're the best people to be able to do that anyway, because you're the one studying for the exam to make that happen. 562 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling? Oh, there you are. Where are you calling from?
Oh, sorry about that. I'm calling from Long Beach, California.
Oh, Long Beach. How's the snow in Long Beach?
Oh, yeah. What is that?
What is that indeed? What can we do for you today?
Oh, yes. Oh, hello, Professor. I just wanted to tell you it's an honor. I just had a couple questions that have been bugging me.
Hit me. Let's see if it bugs me too.
Okay. So I was doing the practice labs on the GTS learning, and I was doing the IPsec tunnels, and then I was successful in creating one from my phone to my job. And I was like, I was so excited.
Nice.
And then I tried to do it at my house, and then it took me a long time to realize that my router didn't support it. And I was like, oh my God, that was why.
Yep. And it's one of the challenges. And by the way, creating an IPsec tunnel is a difficult thing to do when you're not studying for certification. You're doing this for a living and you're trying to get tunnels up and running. When I used to work as a systems engineer for a next generation firewall company, we would spend a lot of time trying to get these IPsec tunnels up, because most of the time you're connecting one manufacturer's device and another manufacturer's device, which aren't made to exactly with the same terminology. So you kind of have to have to do that. You kind of have to build those things up yourself and figure those out. So the fact that you were able to get it done at all, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You at least got a tunnel
No,
running.
yeah, definitely. That was bugging me. Another thing I had concern was about now that cryptocurrency is taking off.
Oh, yes.
Is I was wondering, every time I log into cryptocurrency, I check all my active connections, the network connections. I look at all the trace routes, like all the network hops. I like, okay, this is a known server. I know this is a big data server. Like, I'm trying to make sure that there's no man in the middle,
Right.
or that there's an organization doing like a farming technique inside the telecom building, maybe a zero-day attack. Maybe they have access to a packet shaper, or where they can shape the headers of a packet to simulate that they're a switch, or that they emulate that they're a DNS server, and they could maybe do some truck negotiation and be like, you know, route everybody to this address here, and then everybody, you know, submits their passwords to this fake website, and then after you submit your password, it reroutes you to the real website, and then you'll never know.
You never really appreciate your own capability for paranoia until you start buying cryptocurrency. And it's one of those situations where almost like how Mrs. Professor Messer is a nurse. So anytime someone has a cough, she's always thinking all of the most horrible possible things that could possibly be. It's the same thing on our side. We already know about all of these DNS poisonings and the injection attack, everything that could happen for somebody to gain access to this very important resource. And you're absolutely right. All of those things could happen with all of those resources. And there's so many different ways that people now are thinking of buying and selling cryptocurrency that would get around that. You've probably even seen some of the older Bitcoins that were actual coins. Some people have, I've seen Bitcoin Cash that looks like cash, but it's got a barcode on it so that you can actually take that dollar of cryptocurrency and or coin of cryptocurrency and put it into your own account without ever going online. And I've seen people, they're starting to take advantage of the hardware wallets, which is really the ultimate answer to what you're talking about, is using these hardware wallets where everything is stored in that wallet and there's no way to get it out of there unless you physically have access to the wallet and push the buttons on the outside of that wallet. That might be one of the best ways to store those cryptocurrencies as well. It's going to be an ongoing challenge because these types of attacks you're talking about are happening all the time with cryptocurrency. You have to be extremely diligent. You have to make sure that your system is safe, that you're maybe running from a known good VM, that you're using hardware wallets, that you've got backups of all of this information, or somebody could eventually gain access to those details. You're doing all the right things, and I think the level of worry and concern you have is completely founded, and you're doing, it sounds like, all the right things to make sure. Make sure you're over an encrypted connection, that you're checking the certificates, that you're dealing with somebody who's well known in the industry, that you're storing that information now on your own crypto wallet. Those are the things that make the most sense and can keep it safe where nobody else now has access to it.
Yeah, what's scary to me is, like, when you're playing a video game and there's a modder, a hacker, he gets past the servers have no idea that he's manipulating the physics, and I'm worried that pretty soon people will be selling apps that could be maybe a Switch emulator, and for $100 you're now a hacker.
It's a challenge. I've seen this on websites I've visited recently. I've been doing some research. I end up on a website and my CPU pegs at 100%, and they're doing cryptocurrency mining in the JavaScript. You never know who you're going to be connecting to. You never know what's going to be on your computer. You should never be keeping your cryptocurrency on your online system, on your online hard drive. This should always be something that's offline. It should be at a minimum, a software wallet that's stored elsewhere, or better, a hardware wallet that you can store elsewhere, so that just like you protect the money in your own wallet, you don't just put that out on the table that somebody would come by and pick it up. You keep it in your pocket, you keep it hidden, you keep it somewhere nobody else can have access to, and that's really the best way to protect yourself. It's a constant challenge, and as soon as we figure out how to block those, they're going to come up with new ways to do it as well.
I really appreciate it, Professor Master. You're a great resource to this community. And if there's one thing that I learned from you is that the weakest link in security is the user.
It's always is. It's always going to be. Thanks for calling. I appreciate it. Thank you for your support as well.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye-bye. That's the folks in Long Beach are having to deal with this weather. I feel for them. I've got a nice bit of cryptocurrency set aside. It's just going to sit there. It's more of an investment in that piece. And I've got offline pieces. I've got hardware wallets. I've got it stored over here. It's not on my computers, thankfully. Back to the phones. Been holding a while. The 240 area code. You there, caller? Which name we're calling from?
Hi, my name is John. I'm from Maryland. We have snow just like the other friend in Virginia. Yes. We're only 30 miles away.
Yep, I feel you.
First of all, thank you very much for your live chat and your generous material. I just took some study in Net Plus, but then my requirement is a Security Plus from my client that require me. So they don't care about the whole. And
for those who are listening, we've been going back and forth with emails back and forth today. So it's good that you've called so we can kind of talk about this. I guess your current challenge is now that you have to take Security Plus, which one do you take, the 401 or the 501?
Right. So I heard I just knew it from yesterday or a day before. So I do a quick search on the internet, not very thoroughly, but I heard that a lot of people say 401, you may have advantage, a lot of material out there. 501, some proportion of 401 movie, some like CA plus or something.
Yep.
But in the 501, they have more performance based. And I'm afraid of performance-based question. So I'm kind of like trying to waving out whether 401 or 5. One way is that they less material, but then more performance question, which is I'm not good at. So technically, I don't care which one. For me, it's easy to pass to get a service satisfying the client. That's good enough. I mean, material for me to pursue 501 or something later. Everything's good. So I just wanted to find any easy, because on my job right now, they require that I should have that as soon as possible.
Yep. Well, let me break it down for you, because I think we can break it down in a way that at least would be able to help you make a decision. So the first thing is that a lot of people probably realize this already. If you take the SY0401 Security Plus exam, which is only going to be available until the end of July 31st, that exam will be retired. But as long as you can take the 401 and pass it before the end of July, you will be Security Plus certified. Now there's this new exam that has come along. So we're in this period where there's an overlap between these two. You could take the 501 exam instead. And if you pass the 501 exam, which will be around for the next 3 years, you will be able to also earn your Security Plus certification. It's important to know that it doesn't matter which exam you take, you earn exactly the same certification. That being said, there are some people in the industry who are looking for folks who have taken the latest version. So one good thing to ask, if somebody's requiring a Security Plus certification, a good question to ask of them is, hey, does it matter which one I take? And they may say, well, yes, it does. I want you to take the 501. And they may be insistent on that, knowing, of course, that it doesn't matter. You'll still earn the same Security Plus, but they may have a preference. So you may want to immediately go back and ask that question of the people requiring this. In your job, they'll probably just say, oh, we don't care. We just need you to be Security Plus certified. And then you're back to deciding between the two. You're absolutely correct. The 401 right now, it's been out for 3 years. There is a ton of content available on the internet dealing with the 401. There's tons of books available from the booksellers that have 401. There's 401 content everywhere. But the exam's been out since October for the 501. We're starting to see more 501 content out there. I'm starting to see more people passing the 501 in the CompTIA subreddits and elsewhere. So, and of course, my entire 501 series is available. I know the live labs for 501 are available. The GTS learning book for 501 is available. I don't think that's as big of a problem now. I think, although there probably is more 401 content available, I think there's enough 501 content that anybody should be able to get their hands on it and do well on the exams. I don't necessarily agree that the 401 at the 501 is more performance-based questions than the 401. I think both of them have the same quantity of performance-based questions and multiple choice questions. So I would not have that. I would not consider that to be anything that is something you would run into. The number of performance-based questions you get on your exam will differ from exam to exam. It's a random set of questions you might get. If you take the exam today and you take the same exam tomorrow, you will get a completely different set of questions, both multiple choice and performance-based, and probably a different number of multiple choice and performance-based as well. I don't think that there's any difference between the exams. I've had, from the things that I have read, I haven't seen anything that would say the 501 had more performance-based questions associated with it. So I wouldn't necessarily use that. The other thing to keep in mind, of course, is the retirement date and the fact that the 401 will be retired at the end of July. If you're taking the 401 exam, you have to take it and pass it by the end of July, or you're going to have to reset and start taking or learning the 501 materials. As I mentioned in the beginning of the study group, the SY0401 and the SY0501 are very different exams. The content is very different. There's some overlap. There's about 50% overlap, but that's a big difference between those two exams. That's why whenever I was emailing you, John, I was saying, what exam are you planning to take? Because we need to make sure that you're studying from the right materials. If you're taking the 401 exam, you have to use 401 materials. If you're taking the 501 exam, you have to use 501 materials. You cannot mix and match these for those pieces. So this may be a case where you have to go back and ask, which one do you prefer? And if they say it doesn't matter, then it's kind of up to you. And it may be one of those times where you do go to the CompTIA subreddit and see what people are saying about the new exam, see what they're saying about the old exam, and then you finally decide, okay, I'm going to take the 401 or I'm going to take the 501, and now you've sort of decided on it and you're going down that route. It may not, I would not recommend that you just pick one. I really think you need to put some thought into it and ask folks what they are looking for and then make the decision. It's not a simple thing to change in midstream. Does that help, John?
So I don't think I have the time consuming. I don't think I have the time issue because
right. Yep.
I have to pass the exam as soon as possible because the job requires they want me any day to get the exam. The only thing that probably you already got everything that you said. The only thing that I would like to see would that be 401k more material, more feedback than 401 would be will help me to pass the exam easier. That's the only thing. It's up to you that.
I agree. If it was me right now, if I was planning to make this decision that you're making, and it didn't matter which one I took, and I knew I had to do it in the next couple months, and the retirement wasn't an issue, I'd probably take the 401 because there's so much more material out there. There's so many more people who've already taken the exam, and I can look at their exam experience. There is a lot more information out there about the 401 just because it's been there for a while. They probably are not going to be changing the 401 content before it's retired. I wouldn't think so, but you never know. They could, but I can't imagine that they'd be working very hard in changing 401 content at this point. So it's kind of locked in. It's a known quantity, and I like that. I like the ability of going after something that is well known, that people understand, and that if I had to choose right now, that's the one I'd choose, John.
Wonderful. One more thing is that I probably got your third book, which is I have discussed with you over the email.
Correct.
Any other study material or exam or resources that you may recommend? The other one you recommend a lab, but they don't have. They have the 4.1. They don't have the 4. They have the 5.1. They don't have 4.1. Any resource because I see one of the CompTIA study. They cost about $400. I don't know how close is the exam. I don't want to cheat, but whatever available outside there, help me very well to prepare. I would do that. Any recommendations?
I do. On my website, under the Security Plus training, I have a list of recommended resources. There is a 401 Live Lab. I think all the links that I've done on my site have sort of updated to the new Live Lab. Do I keep the old Live Lab links on this page? I do. On that, if you go to the Security Plus section at the pull-down menu at the top of my site, there's a recommended resources, Security Plus resources there, and there's links there to both the 401 and the 501. I know there's 401 study guides and links to the 401 and 501 live labs as well, with the extra discount built into them. I like the GTS Learning books because they're straight and to the point, but books are very subjective. So I recommend always going to Amazon and reading through as many books as possible to see, because you can read a little sample on Amazon to see which ones kind of feel better to you, which ones work better for you. I like the live labs because people can set up, like the last caller, we can set up an IPsec tunnel online and watch it all work. There's something very valuable to actually performing those functions, and that's one of the reasons I like the live labs. And get as much Q&A as possible. GTS Learning has Q&A, but other places have Q&A as well. Try to get some Q&A to kind of help you know how well you have sort of gathered all the content, so that you'll have some testing that you could test yourself with to see if you're really ready for the exam. That would be my recommendations, John.
So the one you mentioned before for the 5.1, you have that in the 4.1 as well?
Correct, sir. If you go to the top of my website, there's a link for Security Plus, and in there is a list of recommended CompTIA Security Plus study resources. And I list out all the books I like, all the live labs, and they've got them for 401 and 501 in there, depending on which exam you're taking.
So one last question.
Sure.
A friend of mine just come in and would like to ask you that one of the lab or core book from the CompTIA store, they cost about $400, like I just mentioned. So would you recommend that? I think probably it's very vague because I don't know if you know what you're referring to. CompTIA store may have a lot, right?
That's sort of the problem I have is getting an understanding of what is out on the CompTIA store. I myself am not affiliated with CompTIA. I'm not a CompTIA partner. A lot of CompTIA partners also sell through the CompTIA store. CompTIA doesn't necessarily make a lot of their own training materials. It's third parties that do that. So I don't know what's out there. And as I mentioned the other caller, I just don't have time to go look at other books and other videos to know what's in there. I would recommend you go to the CompTIA subreddit on Reddit and ask them. See, has anybody tried this? Somebody is bound to have tried it before and can give you some ideas. You may even be able to search through there and see someone else who may have put something in there, because that's a pretty big investment. It'd be good to know what you're getting.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I would like to save your time and everybody's time, but really appreciate that. A lot of resources that you make outstanding, and you are very well known on website, very well known. A lot of people I talk to, just to let you know that.
I appreciate it, John. We'll keep these emails going back and forth between us. We'll make sure you get the right Security Plus stuff, okay?
I'm going to get the 4.1 right now. I can let you know that.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Perfect. I'll get things set up for you after the study group is over. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. That's it's always a challenge. You're trying to figure it out. Do I take the 401, 501? I get it. It's not a simple thing to be able to have that there. Back to the phone lines you've been holding for so long. Thank you for holding. 540 area code. There, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Professor Messer. This is Zoe.
Welcome. What can we do for you?
Well, I've heard people ask earlier about what you thought of the Cert Master by CompTIA, and I've heard it in other study groups. I've used the Cert Master for all three of my certifications, A+, Network Plus and Security Plus.
Great. So what is your review? What do you think of it?
For someone like yourself with your years of experience who might just want a quick, easy review, you might be able to get by with just that. For the rest of us, if that's what you're relying on to pass your exam, it will not be enough.
Okay.
Now, that being said, I do feel it has its place. What I really loved about it is I felt that since they were making this product, they're the ones that make the exam. Let me see how they ask questions. And that really helped me when I got to the exam because they're kind of phrasing it similarly to the way that you might see it on the test.
Okay, good.
And not having taken a certification before, I was not accustomed to being asked questions in that manner. So it helped me kind of relate a little more to how they might expect me to think. I also found it really, really invaluable on the go. I had the app on my phone, so while I had some downtime at the movie theater, waiting for them, I could just get on there and do a few more, and it tracks your progress.
Nice.
So you can stop at any time and pick up where you left off. And I think it's great for people on the go that you can get those extra 5 minutes in here, 10 minutes in there, and it doesn't really feel like work, and it's not boring. And the other thing it does is it tracks how many times it takes you to pass a question. So it kind of evaluates where you're having trouble. If you know something right off the bat, it kind of goes, you know that. We don't need to see that again. If you've had trouble with something, it'll give it to you again and again and again.
Nice.
And I really liked that as well.
That's pretty good. So if it's not the only thing that someone might use for their certification studies, what other things did you use?
I used everything but the kitchen sink. I used your
It's a good strategy.
I wish I had found your videos for the A+, but I found you during my Network Plus because I was struggling. I'm looking at the books I used, and I went to Amazon like you suggested. I picked the books that seemed to come from someone who had credentials. So I went with the Mike Myers CompTIA all-in-one certification for A+.
Okay.
And because I really, really loved that book, I also stuck with the series for the Network Plus and the Security Plus. I thought the Network Plus was good as well. I did not like it for the Security Plus, me personally. They had different people, obviously, authoring the books. And that's something for people who may find one book starting like on a lower level exam, and they all stick with the series. You may not like the way that the authors present the material in other versions produced by the same company. I also used, Total Seminars. I think Mike Myers sells practice exams and questions through his website. And that was very helpful as well because I found getting questions from as many different sources as you can, because everyone thinks differently and phrases the questions differently, and that keeps your mind kind of on the go so that when you get into that exam, if the material is phrased a little bit oddly, you're kind of accustomed to that.
Right. So you've kind of gotten 3 of the 4 things I always tell people to do, which is get a good book, watch some videos, do some Q&A. And the 4th thing I always tell people is to get some hands-on. Were you able to get any hands-on for these certs?
Well, for the A+, I didn't feel like it was necessary because over the years, I had done everything. I had built my own computer.
You already had the hands-on.
I had to troubleshoot everything from, I had the hands-on for the A+.
Sure.
I knew Windows. Network Plus, I struggled a lot with that. And then for my Security Plus, my voucher was about to expire a couple of months after I took my Network Plus for Security Plus. And I went to the GTS Learning Labs and used your coupon code to get that as well. And some people would say, well, I don't want to spend all that money. But if you look at a college course and the thousands of dollars that it takes, what I spent on all of my training materials is a fraction of that. And I passed all 3 of my exams on the first try. Some of them just barely. But I'm kind of proud of the fact that I did manage to pass them the first time.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like from all of the things that you've done, it kind of extends past. Of course, we want the certification. There's things we're getting the certification for, and we're using the certification to do something in our career. There's a reason we're getting it. But there's also the things you learn when you're going through that process that now you understand, oh, that's how the networking piece works. That's how that protocol communicates. And on the security side, okay, now I know how the digital signature piece is supposed to work. And whenever I see that being used, I know what's happening under the surface. There's value in that as well, I think.
Right.
That's fantastic. What a good experience in all of those. And that's something I think anybody would be able to pull some of your experiences with these products from and maybe use some combination of those for the things that they're doing.
Right. And the other thing I found for people that are worried about passing the exam is that I find that you know yourself better than anyone. And if you feel like you're stuck in a certain, like you're bored or you're stuck with a certain study material, don't just keep with it and fall asleep on it or half hear or see what's going on. Switch to something else. And I found that switching between all my different arsenal kept me going.
Nice.
And where I might have just kind of given up and I don't feel like doing this right now.
That's a good study tip, too, because I know I shift back and forth between my iPad, my iPhone. Also depends on where I happen to be, if I'm in line at the grocery store versus sitting at my desk. So I find that also, it helps me if I have different study resources depending on where I am, not just where I am in my head, but where I am physically.
Oh, and I forgot one of the greatest study resources, your course notes.
Oh.
As I said, I didn't pick them up yet for the A+, but I did get them for the Network Plus and Security Plus. And one thing I do look for is books that give you a free ebook when you purchase the book, because with my books and with your course notes, I had them downloaded to my mobile phone. I had them downloaded to my tablet. So last summer or when the spring, I was at the beach studying on the beach, and it was great, you know,
fantastic.
And your course notes are fantastic like that. And so are like the ebooks. If you just want to do like the chapter, a lot of them come with little quizzes at the end of each chapter.
Right.
And that's something you can do on the go anywhere.
Nice. That's always valuable. Thank you for your support of those.
Thank you. And I just wanted to share my experience, because every time someone asks you about the Cert Master, a lot of people have not used it, and I did, and I would recommend it, but you have to know its place.
Perfect. What a great review of all of those things. And I think anybody who's listening in, I'm going to put this on a replay on my study group so that other people who are trying to find the right thing can learn from some of the things you've done. Congratulations on your certifications as well.
Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks for calling. You too. That's some good stuff right there. That's worth the whole study group right there, wasn't it? Just having that level of information of somebody who's been through it and been able to walk through all of those pieces. What a great call. Thank you for that. I know a lot of people are going to be able to use that. Back to the phones, 505 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, hello.
Hey, how you doing? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name is CompTIA. I'm calling from Texas. I'm kind of interested in changing my career field because I'm like an engineer, let me say petroleum engineer. But my friend told me about the CompTIA Security Plus exams and everything. So I don't know where to start from. So I've been following your program and everything. I've even following your course material. So I just want to, how will you advise me and where should I start from?
My advice for anybody who's going through this process of trying to figure out what do I do, where do I go to get these certifications, just listen to that last caller. You know, she had a nice strategy of pulling in information, getting it out of wherever she had, whatever she had in front of her, on her mobile devices, on her books, and getting it into her brain. And she was really taking advantage of those four things I always tell people to do. Get a good book. You need a good book. Books are able to present information in a way that's different than any other study material you're going to have. Also, find some good videos. I happen to make some, but you don't have to watch mine. Find some videos that work well for you and what you're trying to do. Get as much Q&A as possible so that you're able to have questions asked of you to see how well you are understanding this content as you go along. And lastly, get as much hands-on as possible. I mentioned the live labs, but you can build your own labs as well and step through the study materials and the course guide, the exam objectives, and figure out some of these things they would like to do. Load up PGP, create a PGP set of keys, send me an encrypted message, see if it works. You know, those are things that might help you as you go through this, but those are the 4 major points: is the book, the videos, the Q&A, and plenty of hands-on. If you do that and you go through all of the exam objectives, you can check them all off, you're going to do fine on the exam.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling. I think those 4 things. Now, of course, you can go beyond that. Do other things. Intern somewhere. Work with somebody in your organization. Talk to the security department. If you're already in a company, you're on the help desk, talk to the security team. What are you guys working on? Are you coming in on the weekend? Can I help you with any of that? They may be looking to have another body help to pull the next generation firewall up into the rack to mount it. The more warm bodies, the better. And you might learn something in between all of that. The 678 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor. This is Robert. I'm actually in the chat with you guys.
Hello, Robert.
Hey, just had a quick question for you. And I do appreciate everything you've done for us so far. I have a book. I've got your study notes.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll actually say it up front. Do not do a brain dump. I tried it the first time, failed Security Plus. Don't do it.
Oh,
just read the book, get over with it.
Sorry to hear that.
That's okay. But I do have a question for you, and this is more on the technical side. I had a question, and it's driving me insane. So Jane's security admin needs to implement secure wireless authentication method using remote radius server for authentication. Which method should she use? WPA2 PSK, WP PSK, CCMP, or LEAP? I could not find anything online reading through books of why you would use LEAP over CCMP.
It's a good question. It's a very common way for people to implement wireless authentication. You know, there's two kind of sections of wireless you have to know about on this exam for Network Plus and for Security Plus. Obviously, a lot of people, when they think of wireless, they think about the encryption part. Like, I need encryption. And everybody thinks about, well, the only type you really do these days is WPA2. If you're doing any type of wireless communication that's not a public access point, you're in your home, you're configuring it with WPA2 encryption. That's just normal, common stuff. Now, there's another side of this that is, how do you allow people access to the wireless network? That's the authentication side of things. And the question you're asking is really about the authentication, is that we're wanting people to gain access to the network, but we're not willing to just hand everybody out one single password. That's what you do at your house. When a guest comes over and they go, hey, what's your wireless password? Oh, it's Ninja One. Okay, Ninja One. They're on your network. But you can't do that in a company. You can't just go to everybody's desk and go, the password today is Ninja One to get on the wireless. Because anybody from outside the company, is they get their hands on Ninja One, they're suddenly on your wireless network. So the way we commonly do this is through some other type of authentication method. Normally, when you would connect to your corporate wireless network, you're using your normal username and your normal password. Usually, I say normal, usually it's a Microsoft domain login. It's the same login you use to get onto your corporate desktop. It's the same one that gives you access to the corporate wireless network. Well, we already know it's going to be encrypted, but how are they able to use the password for you to give you access to the wireless network? Well, it has to authenticate back to some central authentication server, and Radius is a very common way to do that. Some people might use LDAP. Some people might use Active Directory natively to be able to do that, or Kerberos would be the native method to be doing something like that. But it's some type of access back to a central database. That way, it's very easy for the administrator. If you go into the office and they fire you and they turn off your account, you also automatically now don't have access to the wireless network or anything else because that uses the same authentication database. So with that in mind, let's go back to your question, which said, we want to authenticate to this wireless network and we're going to use Radius to do it. Which one of these things should we use? In this particular question, the possible answers that they were giving you, it's the type of answer where none of these answers would work except for one of them. It's not that all of them have different capabilities with Radius, because all of the answers you provided, only one of them could possibly work with a Radius, and the particular answer that they're giving that's available, it doesn't even have to use Radius if you don't want to, but that wasn't the question. So let's step through the possible. That's a long description of the question. Hang on. I'm getting to the answers.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I wanted everybody to kind of follow along with my thoughts. So this is what I'm thinking when I get this question on an exam. So the first possible answer was WPA2 PSK. So we already mentioned that WPA2 is the encryption type. The PSK that's on the end is the authentication method. And that stands for pre-shared key, PSK. That's the one where somebody asks you, what's your wireless password? It's Ninja 1. That's a pre-shared key that everybody shares. So you've pre-configured this key in the wireless access point of your wireless router, and the pre-shared key is one that's shared between everybody. It's not using Radius, it's not using LDAP, it's not using Kerberos, it's not using anything. It's using a set key that you put in there that everybody shares. The other option was WP-WEP PSK, WEP PSK. Same scenario. First, you're not going to use WEP anyway, because that's bad. We all know that has cryptographic vulnerabilities. It's easily hacked. We wouldn't use WEP, but the question wasn't about the encryption. The question was about the authentication. And again, the authentication here is PSK, pre-shared key. So that would not be the one either. CCMP is actually encryption type that would be used on WPA2. So that's really behind the scenes of WPA2. The CCMP is this encryption type that's being used. It's not an authentication method. So that would not be used with Radius, because that's used for the encryption process. It's not used for authentication. The only other answer that's available is LEAP, is this type of Cisco type of in fact, it's the extensible authentication protocol, the lightweight version of the extensible authentication protocol LEAP, that doesn't have to use Radius, but it's the only option of the four things that could possibly use Radius as the back-end authentication. So in this particular answer, LEAP is the only thing that could possibly take care of Radius type of authentication, given the options that were available to you.
That makes so much more sense now, because I saw many things online talking about Radius with CCMP, and it just wasn't playing out. So seeing the CCMP is more related to WPA rather than, Radius. Yeah, I get what you're saying now. So, okay, cool. That makes sense. And I appreciate the help. I appreciate everything you do for me.
It's the conglomeration of all of these individual abbreviations and acronyms, and how does it work with wireless and how does it not. In fact, on the latest set of videos I'm doing for Network Plus, I even broke out the authentication and the encryptions completely separately, just to make sure people could look at those as individual items, so they don't, otherwise they just sort of become one big plate of spaghetti and they all just sort of blend together.
I agree. I think that's what I was doing. I was getting confused. So thank you very much, Professor. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the call. Thanks a lot. That's wireless it's a mess of things. You got all the encryption technology. You've got what's being done to actually make the WPA work, the WPA2 work. It's going to become even more complicated. As people in the chat room are mentioned, WPA3 is already in a draft form. They're already working on the next generation of the encryption. That will include a lot more features. So we'll have a lot more to talk about along those lines when we get to that point. Back to the phones. 937 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor. This is Rich from Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, Rich, welcome. What can we do for you?
Well, hey, I appreciate the live session and the class today. It was really really good. I'm just starting it on the 501 course material.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of doing a conglomeration of a good book here. I am from Gibson, along with your class notes. I want to kind of merge everything together as I'm kind of pulling all this together, along with your videos.
Gotcha.
And my question simply is, once I get done with the Security Plus for cybersecurity job that I'm trying to work on, what's the next logical certification? When I look at the DoD directive for a level 2 a person, there's CAP and there's CASP and there's CISSP. There's all these acronyms.
That's right.
What do you recommend as far as the next level of certification?
Well, once you get past kind of the basics, once you get into the security realm of things, and maybe Security Plus is the thing that gets you into that IT security world, it's going to depend on what you're doing. Some people are working towards penetration testing, that they really want to go into that line, even though it's a very small percentage of IT security. There's not a huge amount of jobs there, but a lot of people love that type of thing. They're going to move along to certifications that might do more along a penetration testing perspective. Things like the Certified Ethical Hacker or some of the OCSP type certifications. There are other people that are going to be in more of a corporate environment where they have to manage firewalls. So you may be going towards more of a Palo Alto network certification or a Checkpoint certification or a Cisco security certification. Other people may be looking at more of a broader security perspective. One of the gold standards in security is the CISSP, but you need 4 or 5 years of experience just to be able to take the exam. So that doesn't apply to everybody, but that's considered to be a very sought after certification because it happens to be what a lot of hiring managers are looking for to be able to get you in the door. So that may be the way that you go. Or it may be something that's even more specific or more along the lines of what you're doing in your particular job role. You may be doing more of a SIM type certification or learning more specific training on a SIM. It might be more along the lines of managing IPS or a web application firewall or this or that or the other. You can kind of go along the lines of those. The real next step for most people will be very dependent on what they want to do next or where they happen to be at the time. So there is no dedicated, everybody's going to go this direction. Here's the path that the world will take towards their goal of cybersecurity knowledge. It really is going to depend. Once you get to that point, and you'll see this in security, it kind of applies in general in IT. Nobody knows everything about everything, especially in security. Everybody tends to focus on a particular niche, become the expert in that niche, and you could use that particular expertise and do tons with it, depending on what you plan to do. My last security job, full-time, I was working for a next-generation firewall company as a systems engineer. I knew everything there was to know about the inside of this box. It was my responsibility to make sure it was able to do all of the things that it said it was able to do. I became the expert in that particular thing. So, but don't tell me don't throw me in front of a SIM and try to make me knowledgeable in everything there is to know about a SIM. Don't put me in front of somebody trying to do penetration testing and expect me to be an expert in that. I don't even have time to deal with that. I'm trying to make sure I know everything there is to know about this particular firewall. That's pretty much how it's going to go.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you can't go wrong. None of those is a bad answer, by the way. It doesn't matter what direction you go. Just be the expert in that direction.
Gotcha. All right. Well, again, thank you. I won't hold you up because I know you got other callers in the queue, but appreciate it very much and looking forward to more live sessions with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm looking more forward to more live sessions as well. That's it's always fun to do those. I'm trying to figure out how to do some that are different, not just study groups. It takes about half a day to prep for the hour of Q&A that we do. It takes about 3 or 4 hours to prep for that. So I'm hoping I can find other live sessions that we can do that may be might be a little more reasonable. Back to the phones. 559 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from? 559. Are you there? Are you on mute? Are you not on mute? Because we hear nothing on our side. Nothing. Where's that mute button? Where could it? They may have walked away. This was it. Like he can't possibly come to the phone now. I'll simply walk into the other room. Oh, and we hear noises. It's possible. Are you there, caller? Are you there? Are you there? You've been holding so long. I'm going to stick you back in the queue. Maybe we'll come back to that. There were little chirping noises. Yes, WPA 3 is going to be pretty interesting. There's some good new features that we've all been wanting in WPA 3. For instance, wouldn't it be nice if you were on a public access point at a coffee shop, but everything was encrypted? How do we do that? WPA 3 can do those things. So that's one of those nice features that would be that are definitely needed. There's also some nice features in there about authentication, allowing people access to a network without giving away all of your passcodes. That's kind of a pain. What's your password? Oh, it's big guy one. That's what my password is. So you can get on my wireless network. You have to come up with something, but then you have to change it. The visitor leaves. Now you have to change all your passwords. That's not what you want to do either. And we've tried to work around that by putting in different things. Okay, we'll have a guest VPN, a guest network on our wireless network. That type of thing. Very quickly, we're going to go back to 559 and see what happens there. Oh, caller, are you there? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor.
Hello. What can we do for you?
My name is Kenneth. I'm calling in from Kenya.
Oh, from Kenya. What can we do for you, sir?
Yes. I've listened to your discussion, especially on the career paths, yeah?
Sure.
And for me, I'm coming from a region where, let's say, most of the organizations tend to recruit generally, as opposed to specialization, like
Sure.
maybe you have something, let's say a pen tester, and then you have an security office. And in my organization, we're looking at a risk department.
Okay.
And so being in the risk, in the IT risk department, I'm kind of trying to figure out what are the certifications that I would be best suited to take up, because I have a target to at least be certified. But again, I would like to see what, in your own advice, what would be that general encompassing, because I deal with risk analysis. I also deal with security devices and all that.
Okay. That's a perfectly reasonable perspective to focus on. And you're right. It's not just in your particular geography, but there are organizations in the United States that are not large, enormous companies, and their security group is very small. And everybody in the security group has to at least be a jack of all trades, being able to deal with all of these different technologies that are out there. CompTIA has, of course, Security Plus. And I think Security Plus is a very good entry-level security certification. So does generally the rest of the information technology world. It gives you the fundamentals you need to be able to speak intelligently with other security professionals. So when you have people coming in and talking to you about database injections, you now understand, oh, okay, I know why the SQL injection problem we're having. At least you can have a conversation with them about those things. CompTIA also focuses on 3 other certifications that are, at least 2 of them are pretty good generalized certifications. What used to be called the CSA Plus, which is now called the CISA Plus for cybersecurity. And there's also the next version up from that is the CASP, the Security Professional certification. CompTIA has also got a new certification that's much more niche than the others. That's the CompTIA Pen Test Plus, which I think is more of a popularity thing than it is practicality thing. But if you're getting into pen testing, that's obviously going to be something that's much more practical than it is popular. If you're going to focus on what are the next steps for me to be that generalized security professional, look at least at the exam objectives for CISA Plus, look at the exam objectives for CASP. because the CISA Plus is going to give you the hands-on of topics that you would need to do your job. For instance, anybody in security in a general role needs to understand how to use Nmap, period. That's my opinion. But I think if you understand how to use Nmap, you're going to be extremely good at what you're doing. You also have to be very good at capturing data and looking at protocol decodes. Those two things alone, that's a whole certificate. It's kind of CISAs where those things are coming from. There's other penetration testing, vulnerability scanning. Those things are also hands-on part of the CISA. And those are good things to know about if you are in any type of security role so that you're able to use these tools and understand what's going with security in your environment. The CASP is a little higher level. You're now getting into more of the management of the security role. But both of those together are very good generalized certifications, I think.
Yes, Professor, I really appreciate this. I've taken an observation that in the region, again, most of the organizations tend to appreciate much, or rather look out for certification courses like Security Plus, CH, CISM for, I think, from is it EC? No, EC Council for
right.
CH.
Yep.
And then ISACA, mostly ISACA courses also. And so, of course, the CSA would be good for me also in terms of the knowledge and know-how, and just to get the grip of the practicalities. But in terms of what maybe the local environment is trying to look out for, could be the CISM, CH, Security. So I was trying to look at and see which order would I probably be starting off, maybe with the Security Plus or CH, CISM, and so on.
I think Security Plus is a great place to start. At that point, you're branching out. I think CompTIA is trying to compete with the CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker, with their CISA Plus certification. I recommend you look at the exam objectives for both of those to see which ones really apply. I think a lot of the employers know about the Certified Ethical Hacker because it's been out there longer. It's kind of a whenever you start introducing new certifications like the CISA Plus, it's been out for, I think, over a year now, maybe two, and it's a slow integration as people start to become aware of it. But the content on both of those is very good. I don't necessarily agree with the business side of the EC Council and the Certified Ethical Hacker, but I like the content that's on the exam. I like the content that's on CISA Plus too. So you may want to look at the exam objectives of both and may decide, I'm going to take Security Plus, pass Security Plus, and then decide to take one of these others. And it really is going to be up to what people hiring want you to take, which may ultimately make the decision for you. Or you may look at those exam objectives and think, I like this one over the other. I think I would learn more, or it fits more with what I would like to do. And that may be the reason you choose one over the other.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that at least breaks the ice for me now.
Very good, sir. Good luck. That's fantastic. That's one of those challenges as you go through your career that you will have to make. Regardless of where you live in the world, you have to figure out, how do I go to that next step? In my IT security career, I worked for a manufacturer of a next generation firewall. So when I wrote a book on Nmap. I worked for a company that made protocol analysis and network management and troubleshooting products primarily, and then shifted into security. So that's how I got into the security world and worked for this next generation firewall company. And I never got to the point of getting those high-level certs. I never went out and got a CISSP because at that point I realized this is what I want to do. I'm good. And I stayed there about almost 7 years doing that particular role. And then eventually I realized I want to be doing this full time, and eventually I did this full time. So I knew I wouldn't need the CISSP because I'm hiring myself. I wouldn't have to worry about that certification. But for what you want to do, that may be the logical next step. So you have to kind of figure out, everybody at that point's on their own. What is your path? What is your personal goal? What do you want to do next? And that's where you want to go with those. Back to the phones, the 216 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes. Brandon from Mission, Texas.
All right. Texas checking in. What can we do for you, sir?
Yes. Is it possible for you to briefly explain we're actually in the class studying for Security Plus to take, and we want to know the major difference about the EAP authentication protocols as far as TLS, FAST, and TTLS. Can you kind of like give a little information about that and what you need to know in terms of Security Plus exams?
And fortunately, on the Security Plus exam, you don't have to know everything there is to know about EAP, the Extensible Authentication Protocol, because it is an extensive protocol that's used in so many different ways to provide authentication in so many different systems. Fortunately, when you're talking about authentication of wireless networks, which we were talking about a little bit earlier, there's only a certain number of methods that are used on wireless networks to be able to do that. Looking at the SY0501 exam objectives, and I'm going to specifically reference those because I think that's where most people are looking at. But you could also look at I think it's probably identical if I think back to the 401. It's very similar. It's not identical. Looking at my notes, I can see there was actually, did I choose to do? Oh, I already wrote over what I did. But they list out, you have to know what EAP is. So generally speaking, what is EAP and how does it work? What is the idea of what it's used for? And the 4 different types they go through are PEEP, EAP Fast, EAP TLS, and EAP TTLS. So you kind of have to break out each one of those. Each one has different things associated with it. Whenever you, for example, whenever you hear about anything using TLS, you know there's going to be some type of certificate involved on a server, because that's effectively SSL. That's a great way to encrypt, to protect things, because that's one of the challenges when somebody's authenticating. How do you protect that username and password? Well, normally you would encrypt it. Well, how do you do that? Do you use private, some type of shared password? Do you use a passphrase that is associated with a certificate, or a key that's associated with certificate, like with TLS? And in my EAP video, I go through each one of those. So there's way too much to talk about in a interactive course. But each one of those has an advantage and a disadvantage. Some of them we don't use much anymore, like PEEP, and it's been replaced with more of the TLS and TTLS and other types. Really, basically these days, 802.1x has replaced everything. But there's still people that need an EAP type function on maybe a legacy system that they're using, or a different kind of dial-in VPN that they happen to be using that doesn't support 802.1x. And it's all about authentication. Gotcha. So I would recommend grab that video, go through. I tried to delineate each one separately and how it's used, because they are each in different places, but it's sort of a summary of where we've gone through the years that finally brings us back to 802.1x, which kind of inside of 802.1x, I realize people are using EAP to be able to accomplish that communication on the back end. I show that in the video as well. So there's some of those EAP types we just don't use anymore, just because they've sort of run out of, they have to be supported by the product that you're connecting to, by the access point you're connecting to. And manufacturers are going to choose the most popular 2 or 3, and that's where most of the industry will focus on.
That makes sense. And just last thing, actually, like, we have a class of 25 students. I'm actually the instructor. We have 25 students taking their Security Plus next week. So you can just give them a shout out. We're actually watching you live right now in Mission, Texas.
Fantastic.
They're all taking their test next week, so we're just getting prepared for that.
This is it. Bottom line, you better study. This is where you really start to figure out if you know this stuff or not. Have everybody grab your exam objectives, go through the check marks, sit around and quiz each other. You're going to do, as long as you know everything on that exam objectives, you can check off everything on the list. You guys are going to do fine. It's going to be great. And you're going to have a good class of people who have their Security Plus certifications. Congratulations to you on that, by the way.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling. That's exciting too. Oh, and you got a week. How's it going to go in a week? Take this exam. There was one certification exam I had to take 3 times to pass it. Don't let that happen to you. I thought I studied enough. It happens. The good part is if you go in and you don't pass the exam, now you know exactly what you'll be faced with, at least the function, the structure you'll be faced with. You're going to get a different set of questions, but at least it's not fear of the unknown. That's my problem, is walking into a room and not knowing what exactly I'm doing in that room. Once you get past that, you're pretty good. Let's back to the phones. I'm talking. So we're talking. We're keeping, and I still have to do the show you what's in the studio, but instead we're going to talk to 727 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, my name is Christian. I'm calling from St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yes, you are. I noticed another Floridian on the phone. What can we do for you, Christian?
Oh, yes. I have a quick question. I just graduated. I had my master's 2 months ago.
Congratulations.
In information assurance.
Great.
Thank you. And my bachelor's was in computer network security. But right now, I'm going back and forth with myself because I haven't been able to find even an entry job in my field. So that's been kind of a big challenge. So when I talk to people, they say you need to take a certification, you need to take this certification, that certification, before you can even have a chance to get an interview. So I'm like, so why did I go to school for 5 years degrees and I can't even they can't even let me come to.
Isn't it
applying for internships? After internships, I don't even get an interview.
It's so frustrating.
I changed my resume like 100 times, nothing. So right now, I don't know. So what's your advice there?
One thing you've got an advantage of is that you're in a good geographic location. There are tons of information technology and security positions in the greater Tampa, St. Petersburg area. So you have some of the largest big data firms right there in your backyard. So there's some great opportunities there. So then, and I'm about to tell you how you could take advantage of some of those opportunities without even getting a job at some of these places. So here's and everybody can do this, by the way. First, to your point, you spent all this time getting this degree. What the heck? Now I got to get a certification. You're right. People sometimes will look at certifications and formal degrees or formal educations as things that they can swap out with each other, and you really can't. In fact, a lot of the people online, a lot of the questions I get are, I don't want to go get a 4-year degree. Can't I just get some certifications? Well, you can, but they don't replace a 4-year degree. And conversely, a 4-year degree doesn't replace certification. So as weird and somehow frustrating as it might sound, it's good to have both. You already have the hard part, quite honestly. The formal degree is really difficult and time-consuming to get. It's going to be relatively easy to layer on top of that a certification. But which one do you get and what makes sense for what you're trying to do? I think at this point, you should go outside the scope of technology and start meeting some people in your area. And I would highly recommend that you go to, and especially in the Tampa, St. Pete area, there is a great Cisco user group. There's a great Microsoft user group. I want to even say there might be an ISSA, which is more of a security, a broad generalized security interest group. I'm not sure if there's one in Tampa or not, but they meet every month or every couple of months. Find out where they're meeting. You might be able to find them on Meetup. They may be just on a simple Google search of Microsoft user group. Find out where these user groups are going to be. VMware is another good one, but Microsoft, Cisco, and anybody else. These days, Palo Alto Networks does local user groups. So you may go to those user groups, not necessarily with the idea of learning something. You will learn a lot by going to these user groups, but go to these user groups to meet the people that are there. They're the people that already have jobs with these companies. They're the ones that already have these IT and security roles. And you get to ask them, because they're there to meet people like you and find out what you're looking to do. Ask them, if I was going to come to work for your organization, what do I really need? Because I have this master's degree. Are there certifications I should be focusing on? And they'll tell you, oh, absolutely, you should do this. You should get this. You should do these things. And perhaps more importantly, you're now meeting them. That is the most important part of this user group part is the actual people networking. It's the actual human networking that you will do. Make sure that you get a LinkedIn account, that it's up to date. ask them, hey, can I now that we've met at the user group meeting, can I just add you to my LinkedIn? That would be great. The information you provided me is very valuable. If I was going to interview at your place, who should I send my resume to? I'd love to talk to somebody there. Or once I get the things that you just told me to get, I'd love to come talk to you guys more about that. Maybe we'll see at the next user group, or I'll talk to you on LinkedIn or whatever. Make those relationships, build those relationships. These are the relationships you will use throughout your career because you know people that are working there. And you aren't using the relationship. You know these people. You like these people. They're going to be your friends. They will be people you're working with throughout your career. I probably had somewhere between 12 to 15 jobs in IT throughout my career. I'm hoping this will be the last one I have. But that entire time, the first job I got, I didn't know anybody when I started working there. I'm still not sure why they hired me, but they did. From that point on, every other job I got, because we went through this in a previous user group or a study group session, every other job I got after that, I knew somebody who worked there. They may not have even been in the group in IT that was hiring me, but I could walk in the door and say, yeah, it's nice to meet you. Yeah, I know Bill from the Microsoft user group where we've met. I know him for a long time, and he's the one that told me about this. And they know that you know them. There's a comfort level. They're like, okay, if you know him, I'll go talk to him. We know who you are. People want to hire and work with people they know and people they trust. And it's a way to build that trust, and it's a way to build that knowledge base. It's a way to do that human networking.
Okay. All right.
And you're in a great place. Tampa's fantastic for these things. Plenty of great user groups there you have enormous data centers in Tampa. Enormous data centers, huge amounts of data there. There's great opportunity for you that you may not. The only other place in Florida that might be better is Orlando. Maybe even better than South Florida where you are right now.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Christian. Good luck with that. Let us know how it goes.
All right. Thank you.
That's the only place is up. Go to these user group meetings. I used to present at a lot of user group meetings. I'd be invited in to show this amazing next generation firewall technology that at the time nobody believed did what it did. And it was great to show people this amazing new technology that nobody else had, that was working, that was implemented. In fact, one of the biggest implementations of that early on was when I did in Tampa, right next to the airport, for a company that was a retailer. Won't go into the name of the company. It was like a retailer with hundreds of locations that sold out of malls. These are the things that are all over the place. They may not even know they're there, but some of the largest big data is happening in St. Pete. There's enormous data repositories there. Some of the largest data centers are in Tampa, down by the airport. There's huge stuff there, huge opportunity, and big companies that are there. A lot of finance, a lot of telco, a lot of big data. It's a great place to be. So, and there's a lot of those opportunities throughout, up and down the East Coast, which is primarily where I focused in my last position. But I used to go around the world and see these amazing data centers in Scotland, and go to Australia. But that's what IT does. It brings you around to show all of those things. Okay, I promised everybody at least an overview. Whenever I show this shot of the studio, people say, "Are you just putting up the screens just to put up screens? What is the deal with this? What are you doing here? How does this work? Why are all of these things here?" Let's turn on one more screen. There we go, and get one more going there. So all of this has a purpose in here. If you're ever planning to do any live streams or anything that's dealing with interactive communication on the internet, you don't need all of this. You can get away with a single webcam on a single computer, all done with software. But there was, of course, a method to this madness as this built. This is my boat. If you're someone who's ever owned a boat, you buy the boat and then you put a lot of money into the boat, but it's never done. You just keep adding on and adding on and adding on. This is my boat. So let's start with the lighting that's in here. So LED lighting is now what people use to light this. You can get away with a lot less, but the lighting is one that helps. So when you're looking at me, I have lights to my left and right. You can't even see them on this view. They're kind of up here behind me. And they're lighting the background, which is a real background. This is not a green screen. That's a real fireplace and a real motherboard and a real Rubik's Cube. So that's an important thing to me. I wanted to have a real background. If you're planning to do this yourself, make your bed or put a green screen up. Green screen is it's difficult to get going, but there's an option there to be able to do that. So let's go through these screens because people are saying, okay, what is this that you have? What are all these things that are going on in front of you? So let me give you the overview. So right in front of me, you can kind of see that's the Q&A we were doing. So everything I'm showing on my main screen in front of me is primarily running the Socrative screen. So whenever I show a website, whenever I showed the CompTIA website, I was showing that. So what's on my front screen? This is an iMac Pro. It's brand new. So this is a fantastic machine. It's rendering things now screamingly fast. It used to be whenever I would render a video, if it was a 10-minute video, it would take 25 minutes to render. Now a 10-minute video is taking 5 minutes to render. So it's an enormous difference on this new machine I've got. The second screen to my right is the second screen of that iMac. So this is usually the chat. And you can kind of see the chat that's up here. And that's what I run all the chat and everything from. I'm watching that go by here. So that's the primary desktop I use. After this, I close those down. That's what I play. EVE Online is on this machine. So that's my gaming box. It's sort of the do everything box. Whenever I'm creating my videos, it's exactly the same layout with these machines. The screen that shows the slides is in front of me, and then the camera that you're looking at me through here is the one that's recording the headshot that goes up in the corner. So this is what I use for all of that. To make all of that work, where I've got a video on a screen, I've got it on here, I've got obviously a camera that's over here. That is the bird cam back there. All of that has to do with video switching, and I'm using a TriCaster from NewTek to do that. This is the fancy schmancy TriCaster controller here. Happens to be a hardware controller, but you could do this in software as well. The TriCaster, I've got these 18-inch racks to the left and right of me that are holding all of the audio and the video equipment. The TriCaster is it's just a Windows 7 machine with specialized hardware inside of it that allows me to connect up HDMI and SDI type video. SDI is a coax type connection for video. So all of my video in here is coaxed. It actually goes into a matrix switch that then I matrix into the TriCaster. That way I can have a lot of different video inputs and I can switch them in and out as I want. Generally, when I'm doing a study group like this, there is a camera that's in front of me. There's a camera that's behind me. There is the screen in front of me. And then there's a screen to my right, which is the laptop right here. That is showing the slides that you're seeing. So that's how I've got all these inputs that are going into the TriCaster. And this screen that's up on my left is the TriCaster control screen. So you can kind of see there's two big screens on the TriCaster control. That is my preview of my program. You're seeing what's on the right. The preview is when I push a button, that's the one you see. So that's how I get to know. The preview and program is also in front of me on these tiny little screens, which are a bit redundant. I just haven't decided to get rid of those yet. Those might be going away. Up above, you can kind of see there's an enormous screen up above all of this. You can kind of see the cameras here. And then I've got just a big 55-inch LCD display. It's LCD television. That's my Xbox. But right now, it's showing the TriCaster control. So I really got the TriCaster in two places. One that's here because sometimes I like to look above the camera and reference what's going on. So it's easier for me to look up here and see things like audio. How's my audio signal when people are calling in? I'm reaching over to my mixer, which we'll get to in a moment, and adjusting the audio so you're not blared out or so that you can hear them. And so I'm watching the audio display up there as it's going by. it's just easier to look there than for me to look around and see. Now I'm not even looking at the camera. You're looking at the side of my head as I look around at the TriCaster display. That doesn't help anybody. So that's why it's in a couple different places. There's a little bit of redundancy in here. So that's the video. That's what makes all the video work. The audio goes through from this Heil PR40 microphone. This goes into a mixer that is a Radius mixer from Axia. Actually, the console is Radius, but it's an Axia mixer, AXIA. What it does is take this analog signal from this microphone and it converts it into digital. So this mixer is effectively, think of it as voice over IP, except for broadcast audio. It's broadcast audio over IP. It's really what it is. This is truly a Linux system, embedded Linux underneath the surface of this. There's a controller that's down on my left-hand side. And you can see some of the audio mixing stuff. If I don't hide it on the screen here, you can see some of the audio stuff's going back and forth there as I through my, there we go. Now you can see a little bit more of the lights and everything that is flashing down there. So that's where I focus all of my audio from. It does some neat features too, because now everything is IP. Now I can adjust where it's going a lot easier. And although it looks like a traditional mixer from here, I'm actually able to do some really nifty things with the audio. For instance, people calling in don't hear themselves when they are calling in, even though we all hear them. So you don't want somebody's voice being sent back to them over the phone. That would be a little annoying. So it does what they call a mix minus. So it subtracts out the audio of the caller, but the audio, if I played any other audio here, the caller would still hear all of that, and obviously the caller still hears me. So there's some neat features it does automatically. I don't have to do anything. Mix minus has to be set up a certain way on a traditional mixer. I don't have to worry about all of that. It just, if I tell it that's a phone line, it automatically does a mix minus on that and does not send the audio back down to that phone line, which is kind of nice. So that's got the audio. It's really bringing the audio in through my computer, because that is really bringing the audio in through what I use Skype to be able to connect up to our phone line system, which is all done in the cloud. And then it sends it down to the mixer and then sends it back out sends it to the TriCaster, which the TriCaster is then sent, TriCaster is doing the streaming to YouTube. So the TriCaster puts everything together and just sends that one video signal up to YouTube. And then YouTube takes that video signal, cuts it up into the type of configuration it needs for 720p, 480p, smaller mobile type platforms, and that's ultimately what you see. So I send a single video signal up to them, and then they are sending all of those signals down to everybody else. So that's a very quick summary. Oh, and the iPad that's in front of me plays the presentation. So when I'm looking through what's coming up next, I look at the screen and I can see what's coming up next, and I can tell the slides to go forward just by clicking the screen, and then I'm able to talk to you. I can kind of lead into what I'm about to talk about because I can see the next slide that's coming up. So that's why I have literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screens in front of me, 9 if you count the mobile phone that I use to turn the air conditioner down a little bit once things get warm in here. And that's why there's so many here. Each one has a purpose, as crazy as it is, but I'm only one person in here. So I have to be able to kind of surround myself with the radiation and then figure out how to make all of those things work as we go through the study group. And we're doing 2 different things really on a study group. We're starting with the Q&A. So most of my focus is on the Q&A and the slides at the beginning. And then when we shift over to the phone lines, it becomes a little bit different. Oh yeah, well, let's count the monitor on the cameras. There's 2 more. If you count the cameras, the one that's here and the one that's behind me. But then we shift to the phone calls. It's a little different in what screens I'm looking at. I'm very focused on audio from the callers, and I'm really controlling my laptop because it's also controlling who I pick up on the phone lines and who I can see the calls that are coming in. That's where I focus with those too. So there's a little bit of everything happening there with all of those, and somehow it all works. Not sure how we make that work, but it does. But there it is. Well, that I think is a good place to end the study group for the month. We've gone from almost 3 hours. That's a pretty good study group, and make it happen. I'm already out of coffee. We passed the point of coffee a long time ago. So the throat will have to recover on its own. There's plenty more that we are going to be doing next month. I've got plenty of questions ready to go. I get a week off, no study group next week. Doing tons more network videos, tons of Network Plus is coming out right now. If you subscribe and mash the button on the YouTube, you will be able to see those as they are released. I'll probably be doing more editing of those today. There's also the beginning of next month is A+. We've got Security Plus happening next month. What's the exact date? April the 18th. So you've got on the 4th is A+, 11th is Network Plus, Security Plus on the 18th. Of course, all the replays are available to watch on the website. There's all of you that have questions throughout the month. You can always send me a note. I try to get back to everyone. There's a Contact Us link at the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. And, of course, the chat is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I may not be in there. There may be other people there. But at least somebody is in there and doing that. So there's quite a bit going on behind the scenes here. Even if you don't see me, we are churning away at making this content. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. Thank you for your purchase of the course notes and the other materials on the website. All of it goes towards keeping all of this going. Really would not be able to do it without you, and wouldn't be able to do these study groups without you answering the questions and asking the questions in the chat room and the callers that were here today. I appreciate that as well. Well, that's a great place to end it, I think. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next month. Make sure you join us on that one as well. Look forward to talking with you somewhere in there before the next one. But if not, we'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks, everyone.